It is 11:05 a.m. at the Carson City Community Center, the Robert Kroll Boardroom, and I'd like to call the Nevada Commission for the Reconstruction of the V&T Railway to order at this time. Could I get a roll call, please?
You bet. Jim Wells. Here. Stephanie Hicks. Here. David Peterson.
Here.
Denny Dotson.
Here.
Clay Mitchell.
Here.
Chairman, we have a quorum.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Elaine. Before we get into public comment, we have a new commissioner. Mr. Jim Wells is joining us today for his first meeting. So welcome, Jim, and if there's anything you want to say, I'll let you take it.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm thrilled to be here and look forward to today's meeting and helping out where I can.
Thank you, Jim. We're excited to have you on board. So with that, we'll go to the Pledge of the Allegiance. If I could get everybody to stand, please. Thank you.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Moving on to agenda item number 4, public comment. The public is invited at this time to comment and discuss any topic that is relevant to or within the authority of this public body. Do we have any public comment?
I do not see any public comment, but if you don't mind, could we introduce the people in the audience, only because they will relate to the
Absolutely.
workshop?
No, good idea. Elaine, go ahead and do that if you don't mind. Thank you.
Most of you know Gabe Williman. He was at our last meeting. Gabe does track inspection and maintenance for the V&T Railway and has done so for, well, I think since the inception of the railway. Ken Dorr, also long timer. He's been with the railroad before the inception and is the served as the V&T Railway engineer. He knows the track like the back of his hands. And then we have Carla Wilson today. She is new. Carla is she does the production for V&T Railway. She was involved in the, of course, Polar Express. That is her cast and the show that she oversees. And then also she's done melodramas at the V&T. And then also this winter, the Santa's Workshop. That was her cast out there. So she's our drama queen.
In the best way possible.
White-O.
That's great, Elaine. Thank you for doing that. Wonderful. Moving on to item agenda number 5 for possible discussion. Approval of minutes for the March 3rd, 2021 V&T Railway Commission meeting. Has everybody had a chance to look over the minutes? Any changes or corrections? With that, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll be happy to make that motion. Clay Mitchell, move to approve the minutes from our last meeting as listed in the agenda.
Thank you, Clay. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Stephanie. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye. Passing, so motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item 6, 7, 8, and 9. So we're going to take these as a block. This is sort of our workshop number 2 that we have going on, and Linda Ritter is here with us again. And so I'm going to turn over 6, 7, 8, and 9 to you, Linda, to walk us through. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners. I'm pleased to be here to carry on our work with your strategic plan. I have a presentation that I'm going to use kind of as a guide on moving forward here. And what we're going to do is, and it's according to the agenda, we're going to review your draft mission statement, your goals, your objective, arranged it as a strategy map, and I'll ask that you approve that. From there, I'm going to give you the results of a survey that we did. And this was a very fast survey. We whipped this out in a very short amount of time, but I think that it was important to give you guys some feedback as you start looking to the future of the V&T Railway and what you want to see happen. So some interesting results there. Then we're going to talk about factors influencing the future, which are our internal strengths and weaknesses, and then our external opportunities and threats. And then talk about possible tactics and what is that strategy, using that SWOT analysis to come up with a strategy. And then briefly discuss next steps, and if everything goes well, your next step will be final approval of a written strategic plan at your next meeting. So, okay, let's start this off with, first of all, the mission statement, and I may need to blow that up so you can see it better. Oops, there we go. These goals, objectives, mission statement came from our last workshop. You gave me stakeholders and results. This is what you wanted the railway to achieve. And so from that, we came up with a draft mission statement, keeping the historic V&T Railway alive by offering unique visitor experiences while creating positive economic impacts for the region. So that is the mission. That's what I got from that information. Okay. Let me just ask any questions or any changes you want to see. I'm going to take you through each one of those, get any of your changes, so I make sure I get them down right.
Thank you. Thank you, Linda. At first, when I first read it, I thought keeping the historic V&T Railway was a bit passive, but then I felt there was plenty of action on the later end, and so I was okay with that. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if unique is the right modifier to the visitor experiences. Certainly, I'm not opposed to unique, but the other words that kind of came to mind are memorable or impactful. So, I don't know exactly, but
right.
Anyway, those are just some of the things that hit me when I read the.
And to address that, let me go down to that next step, because those goals was where we're going to see more fine detail on what kind of a visitor experience you're looking for. So we may be able to work some of those out in those lower steps.
Sure.
Okay. And certainly we can come back to this when we look at it as a total. Okay. Anything else? Okay. The next is our goals. Again, let me see if I can get this blown up so you can see it. Where is it? There it is. There they are. The first goal is provide unique and positive experience that visitors can't wait to share. The second is create positive impact for the region, looking more than just so you're going to look at what the visitor experience is, then you're going to look at what kind of economic impact, and then it's protecting your investment, manage and protect taxpayers' investment into the V&T Railway, and the last is to be a part of the communities that support the railway. Okay. If you look, and this is where we break down more of what you want for those, those experiences. So under the provide unique and positive experiences, offer visitor experiences that reflect the authentic history of the Comstock, offer themed events that can be enjoyed by peoples of all ages with varied interests, offer a wide variety of activities for people of all ages and interests, and provide for an easy and streamlined interface with customers. So those are the four objectives under those goals. So I'm not sure if that hits some of the wording and the flavor that you wanted around that visitor experience.
I definitely, this is Dave, I like the use of the word authentic for sure. That's something that I think comes through well in our research just for Carson City, and I don't want to speak for Denny, but up in Virginia City as well. So that's a good word. I'm not suggesting that we include that up top in the mission, or maybe it's unique and authentic visitor experiences, but I do like that came up down below on the screen underneath the visitor experiences. So that's all I would say. Any comments by anybody?
Anything else on those?
No, I think they're great. I think it's and I've worked with this kind of a structure before, and I think it's great. And I think my only reason for pointing out unique is it's appeared on two levels, and so The question is, are we overweighting unique?
Overweighting the authentic.
That's my only question. No, not authentic.
or I mean,
You can't overweight authentic.
The reason I think that I used unique is because it's more than just the history. Because you look at things like Polar and other opportunities. And when you look at the list of suggestions we got from the survey, you might be branching out into other things besides just that.
For sure.
That authentic historical. But now keep in mind, when you, as you go about developing your strategy for the future and really looking at everything you do, this is your theme. This is what you focus on, are these things, okay? Everything you do should fit under one of these objectives. Okay? Anything else? Moving on is creating positive impact, economic impact in the region. Let me see if I can get this to blow up right. First of all is bringing prospective customers to area businesses. Looking for opportunities for cooperative events and attractions, and looking for opportunities for cooperative marketing. So working with the business community to positively affect the economy. That's one of your objectives. And the other is encouraging multiple day stays, and this addresses lodging properties and that business, that wing of the business. Working with regional tourism authorities to create multiple day visitor experiences, and working with lodging properties to offer packages for groups, organizations, and conventions. So any questions on that branch? Okay. Next is to manage and protect let's see where we are. Yeah, manage and protect the taxpayers' investment, ensure the safe and secure operation of the VNT Railway, provide regular maintenance. You want to protect that infrastructure you have on the ground, and ensure all VNT Railway operations follow standard safety protocols. Again, focusing on protecting that investment. The second one is pursue mutually advantageous agreements with service providers. They are a critical part, of course, the operation is making sure you have good agreements and they are mutually advantageous. And that's all I have under that one. Any discussion on that one?
Any comments from?
Comments, questions,
Nope.
concerns?
Go
Okay.
ahead, Linda. No, thank you.
The last is to be a part of the communities that support the VNT Railway. So one important one that came out very strong at our first workshop was supporting regional cultural assets, looking for partnerships with museums, the state prison, other things that we have, some of the infrastructure that we have. And then encouraging and support volunteerism, encouraging volunteers to support the events and activities, and then looking at donations and funds and financial support as well. So, anything else?
Any questions on?
We good?
Go ahead, Linda.
Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it over to you to get an approval on the mission and goals. And did you want to make a change in that word up on the top?
Yeah, so let's pause for a second before we
Yeah.
move
Instead
to
of unique
approve.
visitor.
Yeah, do we want a different word in there? Or an additional word? Go ahead.
I mean, yeah, this is
Place,
Commissioner
or-
Mitchell. I mean, it's certainly not a hill to die on. I think the memorable aspect is captured in as we go down to the orange level. I don't know what it's.
That's the goals, yeah.
Okay, there we go, to the goals level, because it does, the visitors can't wait to share, and so it really captures that, wanting it to be an experience that is memorable. And so I don't necessarily feel, I just, when I use an organization like this, I always refer back to the vision because that is our guiding principle, and I want to make sure that we're not.
That
We're
doesn't
not,
get lost
yeah,
someplace.
we're not going
Yeah.
off on unique,
Right,
at the
right.
expense of other things that are super important. And that was my only reason for bringing it up. I'm okay with the wording the way it is unless someone else feels strongly about modifying it.
Denny, did you want to add something?
Word's a word. We can all interpret it a little bit differently, and I think you've done a great job here capturing the overall direction, if you will. I think there's semantics in there. I don't have an issue with it at all, the way it is. I think it's something we can work with and work towards and continue to probably evolve because we know things change.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Remember that as you develop your plan, it never stays the same, and it shouldn't stay the same. It should adjust according to conditions, so.
Yeah,
it
I
can
look at-
certainly be amended later.
That this is a sort of a living, breathing document, as we evolve, like you said, over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Jim or Stephanie, do you have any? No? Great. I'm so sorry. Ken, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes, for the record, Ken Dorr. Linda, thanks for doing this. This is a great job, okay? And this isn't a criticism, it's just something for the board to consider. One of the goals that had been established by previous boards was to expand the railroad into the Carson River Canyon on the right-of-way that you either own or have easements for. And the other goal was to work towards building some type of terminal support facilities at the Eastgate Depot. And I think I touched on those a little bit at the last meeting. The question is, should those be a continual goal for the commission to pursue? Alternatively, if you guys don't want to build down the canyon, which hopefully that was the case, or don't want to expand on the Eastgate site, that Eastgate site in particular is secured, the right-of-way secured via a BLM transportation grant. That is included within a parcel that has been identified by the BLM under the 2010 Lands Act as to be disposed for development. Okay, and the commission requested that Carson City, and then Carson City requested that the BLM not dispose of that parcel because that's where they wanted to do some, these terminal tracks. So the question is, if you guys don't want to do that anymore, maybe you should go ahead and advise the commission, ask Carson City to go ahead and let the BLM know it's okay to go ahead and dispose that, and then, ultimately they'll put that up for public auction as well as a number of other parcels around that vicinity. I don't expect that to happen real fast because even though that's been approved, it's a slow process getting BLM to proceed forward. They're very busy. So that's the question. Do you guys want to look at expansion, or are you good with the facilities the way it is?
Yeah, if I can address that, the reason it's not set in the goals is I consider that, and you're going to see a lot about that later on, it's a tactic. It's a
Okay.
strategy. Because extending the line for what? First, you're going to define, okay, we want to, in order to accomplish these things, some of these things, as far as the visitor experience, and you're going to see that in the survey results, you really need to extend that line. So it's going to show up in the plan, I would imagine, if that's the board's direction, just based on what we're seeing in the analysis, okay? So extending the line, it's more of a tactic than it is part of the mission. Because once that's done, I mean, to get some of these things done, you may need to extend the line and also expand the improvements at Eastgate as well.
Okay, 10-4. I wanted to
Yeah,
mention that
it's good.
someplace.
No, it's gonna
I
be
was
there.
hoping it would still be a goal that
yeah.
the commission wanted to pursue
Yeah.
as they could.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ken, are you comfortable with Linda's response, and you'll kind of see that?
Oh, absolutely, but
little
it's
bit
not really
later.
up to me. It's up to you guys to
Yeah.
what you want to
And-
do.
and-
So.
No, I just wanted
Yes,
you
I
to be
am.
rest assured that yeah, it's in there, but just not on this first slide. So Linda's going to talk about
Okay.
that a little
Oh,
bit
yeah,
later.
you're going to see a lot about
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Go ahead, Jim, yeah.
There we go. Okay, so I just want to make sure I'm clear on your document. So the dark red bar at the top is what you would call the mission.
Right,
The orange boxes in the middle are your goals.
right.
And so the objectives are the green. So what does that make the kind of grayish?
Well, there's kind of sub-objectives. I mean, you can go down as far as you want because all they do is they describe more what that objective is, gives more detail on that. It's almost getting into the tactic level.
So
Yeah.
actually, given that, I actually think that this is one that we probably should have on this sheet. Given that this is getting down to almost that granular. I think that's a really, from reading the survey results, I think that's an
It's an
important
important one.
aspect that probably should be on this document as a whole.
Where, Jim, where would you suggest, under number 3, or if you were going from left to right, manage and protect taxpayer
Yeah,
investment?
that's where I would put
Okay.
it as
Okay.
maybe another gray box underneath
Yeah.
Okay,
it's hard to say because it's not really a mutually advantageous agreement. And it doesn't really fall under ensure the
it
safe
actually,
and secure
as-
operation, but
yeah.
you could put it under the ensure and safe and
And it's going to
secure
fall under
operation.
that visitor experience because that's really where we got a lot of feedback on both improvements at the depot itself as well as extending the line. So we could put it under
Yep.
that because it's definitely a tactic for that. So we could certainly do that.
Denny, go ahead.
Yeah, just a question or a thought. Should we be a little more generic in how we label that, and not just define a specific project? Because
I would label it just extending track infrastructure. to leave it
exactly, because you never know what things change, which direction we're going to go. Is it going to be on what side? It just depends on, where we're at.
And I would define it extend track infrastructure and then property improvements and keep it kind of wide open.
Exactly.
And then under that, when you start developing those tactics, because part of building those tactics is coming up with an action plan. So for a 5-year plan, we're going to pursue this year, we're going to pursue that year. And that's when we'll talk about some of the specifics on how you're going to get to some of those
Stephanie
improvements.
wanted
Yeah.
to add something too.
And I think, Linda, you may have just hit on it. My question was going to be, often a strategic plan has a term. So if it's something that, if we're looking at this to be what we're going to focus on in our next couple of years, would that fall in there, or is that a longer term strategy? So that was exactly my question, was what kind of time frame are we looking at, so that there are some goals that will be accomplishable and some that are going to be much longer term.
Every year, you should bring it, you should always have that plan available, but you should look at it and develop your work plans. And it's multiple year work plans, because you're going to look at the conditions, what's happening, do you have some opportunities to take advantage of? So, yeah, that should be an annual thing that goes with your budget. You're going to look at your work plan.
Go ahead.
This is Jim Wells again. So I look at this plan as being a roadmap of where you want to go. Kind of your tactics are your plan of what you're going to do in the period that you're assigning. And so it may not be a tactic, but it should still be a long-term goal. And something along the lines of looking at future expansion opportunities, because it isn't really just the tracks. It's the depot facility. It's very, so I like something that kind of encompasses both
Okay.
both aspects of that.
Maybe it's future expansion of the V&T's assets.
Yeah,
Just in a general
and that, I
sense.
was going to second what Jim
Oh,
said.
okay.
The word expand, I think, really
Yeah.
kind of is broad enough to cover any of it. Expanding the system, expanding the railway.
Perfect. Yep. So
Okay.
Linda, for today, do you need to know exactly where we want to put that as far as?
If you
Motion.
could move to approve it with the addition of extension of V&T infrastructure, when I bring the final plan, it'll have some wording there, and we can refine it at that
Oh,
point.
that's good. I like this, you guys. Good. Any further discussion on 6 before somebody wants to put a beautiful motion out there for consideration? And this is just, again, about the mission statement, goals and objectives, so just the slide that we're looking at on the monitor.
I think I'm good. I don't know if you want to go out for public comment.
Yeah. No, because we're just doing public comment front and end, so.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Not on individual items.
No.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to throw a motion out, don't all rush, Stephanie.
Thank you. I move to approve the proposed mission statement, goals, and objectives with the addition of a long-term goal to look at future expansion of V&T infrastructure.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
And this is Denny, and I will second that motion.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion by the commission? I'm seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Linda.
Okay, you
All right,
bet.
let's move on with number 7, please.
We have survey results. So we get to this first one.
And Linda, I just want to
Yes.
say, in a very short amount of time, this is Dave, she went through 700-plus responses on this survey. And I know she was upset that we couldn't let it go another week or two to get to 1,500, but she did an amazing job in a very
I was
short
impressed
weekend,
that you received really good feedback. I mean, 700 responses in a week is pretty phenomenal. This is not necessarily a public opinion survey, because you really did focus on customers, because it went out through the tourism agencies, went to businesses. The stakeholder groups, the way we split it up is you've got residents, prior visitors, businesses, Other people that didn't want to disclose what they were. People that had never visited. We asked tourism representatives, and we also asked service providers. The service providers, we asked for a lot of information about those strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threat, really to get into the SWOT analysis. There's another demographic I don't have a slide on. I'll just let you know, and this is typical of surveys. 74% of the respondents were over 55 years old. Normal. Always happens that way because people just seem to be more interested in giving you responses when they've got the time to do it, I guess. Riders, 516 of them were riders, but you did get a group of people that had never ridden on the train. So using that, we asked about their opinion. What have you heard? What's the reputation like? We also, and this slide isn't in the packet that I gave you, I wanted I added this just this morning because I thought it'd be interesting for you to see on the business sector side, who did we survey? And you can see the hospitality businesses. We got quite a few from Carson City, Story County, Washoe, Douglas. We even got one from Placer County. We asked them to respond, and also, does the V&T impact you? Does the railway impact you? And you can see there was 12 of them in hospitality in Carson. There was a larger percentage of Story County that definitely had an impact, fewer in Washoe and then Douglas. Okay, so give you an idea of what the business sector looked like. In the retail business, we had quite a few of the retailers in Virginia City respond and definitely had an impact. And you'll see that in some of the comments we got about from some people wanting to spend more time in Virginia City as part of the programming. So, yeah, so that was great. I really appreciate the input we got from the Story County business community. So where do these folks come from? The people that have ridden the V&T, 140 of them were Washoe County, 136 from Carson City, and you can see how that's split up. Other regional, that's going to be Eastern California, just outside Fallon, in some of those areas. Nevada outside of the region, quite a few from Southern Nevada that responded, as well as Central Nevada. Probably the biggest out of state is, of course, California. You did get a couple international, several from Canada, one from the UK. There was one from Switzerland that did not put it down here, but based on the comments, they're from Switzerland because they think Switzerland, I mean, they have some ideas, okay, for some Swiss-related things here. So it was, like I said, the comments are posted. You guys can take a look at them. It's very interesting and enlightening reading through all of those comments. We asked the businesses, and we also asked people that haven't ridden the train, the non-riders, what have you heard about the V&T? And you can see that we got, this is the number of comments, 151 positive comments, just 25 negative ones. So really your reputation is very good based on what I saw in the survey. Event participation, we asked everybody that had ridden the V&T, okay, what'd you do? We had 278 were excursions. Now in this, I'll tell you that some people that responded, it could have been the railway or the railroad, okay? There's no doubt about it that there was some cross population there, but it was still good feedback for both enterprises. And I definitely want to share those comments with the railroad, because there were some good comments and suggestions there. But 278 were excursions, Polar Express 212, several for the wine train, that's quite popular, the rail bikes, Mother's Day, and then they didn't want to tell us what they were riding on. So I don't know where that might fit. One question we asked them, okay, you've ridden it, you want to ride in the future? And this was amazing. 407 of these. Everybody wants to come back. So your ability to bring customers back is very, very strong. So that was exciting to see. In your packet, I didn't put ticketing on this. It should have been satisfaction with ticketing. I apologize for that. Yeah. Okay, good. But the first one that went out, I forgot to put ticketing. But the ticketing system you have, everybody's happy with. The comments that I received that were negative, a lot of them, it seemed they were referring to the past, not so much current. But some things that, one that kept coming up was being able to look at a schedule and check the availability, but also assign seating. There got quite a few comments about, gosh, I get there and sometimes it's hard for me to seat with my family and such. So they were very interested in that, looking at more online options. But all in all, your ticketing is working well, based
Linda,
on the comment we
Just
got.
a question about that.
Sure.
Is that, I'm just trying to think back to riding the train, is that when you're kind of getting to the end of the car, maybe, Elaine, and then it's like, because I've waited, if we had 6 or 7 of us, I would wait, so we didn't get split, just, oh, no, go ahead, you take the end, and then, okay.
It's rated first come, first served
Yeah.
at this point. Yes.
Okay,
And when you have
I could see that.
the really, like Polar, where you've got so many people there,
Right,
the logistics and such, we did get comments about that as well.
thank you.
Okay. So we did not set this survey up to be multiple choice because I didn't want to drive the discussion to certain places. So it was comments, lots of comments. And so what I did was I categorized those comments based on subject matter. Now, we have all those comments, so anybody can look at it and get more detail of what people are thinking. But what do you like most about it? And top is history, without a doubt. Everybody loves the history. They want more history, as you'll see in a future slide. The scenery, they loved it. Everybody, lots of comments about wild horses included in that scenery. Staff and volunteers, lots of positive comments about how friendly and helpful the staff and volunteers were. Just the trains, people love to see the trains. There was several comments about, we'd like to have more opportunities to take pictures of the trains. So that was one. Just the ride, some folks just said, I just like being on a train. I just love being on it. The storytelling, narration, they like having an experience as part of the ride. Having that narration, now I'll show you later, one of the problems with the narration, you had some people that loved it and some people that said, will the guy ever shut up? They just don't like it, And then the audio quality question, concerns about that. So there may be some things that can be tweaked there to address that. The environment, I put things, the atmosphere, the facilities, just the fun atmosphere of the whole thing. Family experience, a lot of comments from folks about they appreciate having something they can bring their kids on, and you'll see a lot of folks wanted more of that. Polar Express, very popular. The authentic, the unique experience specifically. And there were several that said, hey, we really like being able to ride to Virginia City. And have that time. It's an easy way to get there. We don't have to park. The one comment I'll tell you folks for Virginia City is quite a few comments about, well, we get to the station up there, but then we got to walk up the hill. So I don't know if you guys get those comments all the time, but that was something that was expressed. So what did you like least? Now, the positive comments, we got 613 positive comments, negative only 188. Not a bad return. There was quite a few programming type of, like the narration. We wanted to leave earlier. We wanted to stay longer. We didn't want to stay as long. So quite a few. I couldn't really pin any one thing to do with the programming or timing that really stood out on top. So I just categorized all of that. The crowds and the logistics, having to wait in line. The crowds, I think mainly with Polar, is
Well,
probably,
Just to comment on that, because it was, each summer we cram people into those cars. I mean, we literally, it's hot and they're
there
on
was
top of
comments
one
about the
another
heat,
and
yeah.
touching knees and the strangers. It is, that third car is going to be a godsend.
Yeah, so.
They want it authentic.
Authentic, there you go. There were several comments about the cost and it being somewhat prohibitive for larger families to be able to participate in, so that's something to be sensitive for. Doesn't go far enough into the canyon. A lot of people said, gee, we'd sure like, in different ways, commented on, could we go, and the rail bikes, there was quite a few comments about that, being able to do that. Location, signage, finding the depot, as we all know, that's a challenge, the condition of the roads. The weather, what are you going to do? Polar is when it's cold and the excursions are when it's hot. So they did mention things, and this has to do with facilities, is maybe more shade structures and things like that to accommodate that weather. Trains and equipment, there wasn't much as far as, there was no real theme on there. Some people liked the open car, some people didn't like the open, some people said the seats were uncomfortable, so just a few very minor things, but again, anybody can look at those comments and get more information. Suggestions for improvements, and this is where you can look at what opportunities, what's out there that perhaps the commission can look at doing. Extend tracks into the canyon, absolutely the first, got more comments than anything. More events and themed events, people like those themed events. Food and beverage service, you saw a lot of requests for, gosh, can we have an event where you serve, like a beer train, along with a wine train, a beer train. More historical information, written and oral. There were several comments about how about, brochures that we can take along with us. Comments about having to do with the narration. Can you opt in and out, maybe personal listening devices, apps on phones. I'm not sure what technology is out there for that.
Linda, did anything come up in those comments about like GPS or beacon technology as you're taking the train, you're going up, as you're passing by things?
There was
If you had the app, it would-
nothing specific, but
Okay.
there was several about, I would like to know more about the history on the road up.
On the way, okay.
Specific. So
Okay.
I could see that being a very popular addition
Okay.
to the experience.
Okay.
Suggestions, lower prices, discounts, locals discounts, seniors discounts, veterans discounts, just some type of pricing structure. Improved audio, quite a few about that. Again, some people want to hear the narration, some people don't. So that's a hard one to address. Expanded train schedule. I think it's just being able to accommodate people's schedule. They want to ride on the train, but here's the schedule, it didn't fit. And I don't know what you do with that. You can't run them all day. Improvements, we asked specifically, okay, we want to provide that historical experience. What could we do better? Again, more of the historic narration, and this follows along with maybe more having to do with the trip up and what people are actually seeing. Doing that, you can combine the comments about the scenery with the history where they can look out and their eyes are guided out. Coordinating with museums and other historic tours. People come here and they know about maybe the Railroad Museum, they know about the State Museum, but if there are some coordinated tours or common ticketing. Interpretive displays. Is there, while we're waiting for the train, there were several comments about, it'd be great to have a display there about mining, about the original V&T, whatever it might be. More costumes. Everybody loves costumes, and they want more of them. And also historic characters. The whole concept of Chautauqua was brought up several times. People really, really do enjoy those. So you could probably do just a Chautauqua train with just a series of characters, and everybody just love that. We asked, okay, what kind of events would you like to see coming down the pike? Food and drink related. We had sunset tours, we had breakfast, we had, beer, we had all kinds of things related, specific to food. Mystery theater, that just kept coming up over and over again. People love those types of things. The other real popular one was haunted, ghost, Halloween, those types of things. Kids themes, any kind of kids themes I think are popular. Old West cowboys and miners, there's still more demand for that history. 4th of July, the Chautauqua and the historic characters. Father's Day, they said, why, you have Mother's Day, what about the fathers? So that was a very common one. And then everybody loves the train robbery. So there was a few people that didn't like it and said that'd be hokey and stupid if you did it. But there was quite a few that thought that would be a great addition. I know Ely does that. So we also asked, what other kind of improvements? We've got the property, to Ken's point, we have all that property. What other things can we do? There's a lot of interest in hiking, biking, multiple use type of approaches for some of the property up there. Picnic area, barbecue area, where a family can come up, have a picnic, and then jump on the train. Small convention and gathering space. There was talk, some folks thought craft fairs, meetings and other things. They'd like to see that. Again, the interpretive displays came up. And then and again, there's a lot of comments. If it only had one, I didn't list it, but if it had more than a couple, then I listed it. But I have combined stagecoach, horse, mule, riding some kind of animal on there. So that was another one that came up. We did get 54 suggestions, okay? Let's see. I think that's it as far as the survey. And again, we've got pages and pages of comments. I was very pleased with the response, and I think it gives you some ideas for looking at the future, what might be positive as you go forward.
Does anybody have any comment or anything?
Questions?
Questions for Linda on number 7? Go ahead, Denny.
Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's neat when people actually fill these things out. You know, I guess many times your return rate is pretty small. We all know that from the stuff that we do in marketing. And we're always begging for people to give us input. I know in Virginia City, we always ask for input.
Right.
We ask people to come to our meetings, and you get maybe 1 or 2, you know, and regulars. But it's great to see the folks that actually, you know, took the time to fill this out. It wasn't a quick.
This was not an easy
quick one to
survey.
do. It wasn't
No.
easy. And like you mentioned, this is great information for anybody that we work with or that's going to be operating on the you know, in conjunction or in partnership with us. This is great information, and nothing has really surprises me. I think it's just about what I thought. There's yeah, I think there's optimism, and I think some of it also by not running last year may have been like, oh boy, I want to get back out and ride it again.
There were several comments just saying that. Please start.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's that demand, that pent up demand we're all seeing right now. People are wanting to go and do things. So I think that doesn't surprise me that everybody wants to ride the train. I guess, and just for the record, trolley in Virginia City, we've been doing that since I've been around. Now,
Really?
sometimes it's been us doing it. Sometimes it's been
okay.
the rail commission, but it doesn't necessarily always fit everybody.
Right.
It depends on if that train's full or not. So some people, they get to walk the 2 blocks. So, yeah.
That's not a bad one.
But no, it's great job, Linda. I think that's the way you put it together here. It's great information for us to use.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Elaine. Yeah, please.
Just for clarification, so that everybody knows the situation, because you'll be making these decisions, you know, and talking about these things after I'm gone. I just want to fill you in. So some of these also, maybe they rode year before last, not
Oh, yeah.
the
That's
next
true.
year. So we had several beer trains. They definitely beat out the wine trains. We did have events with food. But it's some of the Father's Day, we started up a Father's Day train. Wasn't as popular as Mother's Day, but we did do a Father's Day. So there's some of these things you can look back on and say, oh yeah, we've been trying these things. Let's see, you can also look back at the ticketing to see how successful they were. So when you start to gauge, you know, what to keep, what not to do, look at the ticketing results for each of those trains. And you can make, you know, adjustments and modifications there, but there is a group of volunteers, but I did pay them $25 because they came out of Reno, Yerington, things like that. So they got a sniping for gas and coming and showing up. So your docents, they were there, and you would get between 6 to 8 docents every weekend, and they would be there for the send-off, and they'd do the guns and the wave, and you know, and they were in character. So again, those are some of the things you might want to keep. Great group of people, and but yeah, the rest of the comments are just perfect. Oh, and the interpretive displays. We started a little museum inside, and we had the train displays. We
good.
had a video running. People enjoyed that. We were trying to add more, so that'll be great. And then American Flat, the BLM put up a really nice interpretive kiosk at the depot that people haven't seen yet because we were shut down. But it is a beautiful one. So I would encourage an additional kiosk if there's a grant comes up to put there for the railroad. That one was specifically for American Flat, but they go around American Flat on the train when they head into Virginia City. So we figured, why not? They needed a location, And it's really nicely done. So when you guys go out to check out the depot, that it would be nice to see one there as well relating to the V&T.
That's a great suggestion. Has the commission ever applied for a PRT grant through Travel Nevada for interpretive signage? Just out of curiosity? No? Okay.
We did down in the canyon.
Yeah, not to my knowledge.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and we did just down in the canyon this last run when we were doing the COVID projects.
Okay.
And so Gabe and I and a team went down, looked at the where we would put them. By the time we made it down there a week later, everything had been vandalized, the work we had done. So we just let them know we're not going for it. Even though we received the grant for it, we decided not to do it.
Was that Travel Nevada's infrastructure grant?
That was the VIP, they called it. And it was.
I don't think it was the same.
Yeah,
The
so
near one, okay.
they
Yeah.
asked, hey, can you do a
That's what I was- okay.
project? Yeah, so yes, exactly. The one that we got for the passenger onloading, offloading for the rail bikes, those
Yeah.
3 areas. We also had money there for the kiosks. And they had ripped up what we had already done
I
as far as
forgot.
our stairs going up the hillside. So we walked away saying, unless we can take them down every night, somebody's going to do something out there. But near the depot, the setup that's there at the depot, it hasn't been touched. It's not out of sight, out of mind, and you can protect it better with cameras. So again, encouraging you to put one
No,
of those out there.
that's good. Anybody else on 7? Any further discussion? Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to say that it's clear that this is an amalgamation over a period of time, right? And I'll give you an example. I've noticed over time improvements in sound quality on, and so some of these comments may have
It could be.
aged a bit, right?
Yes.
But the other thing that, and I don't know if it's a large enough sample size to do this, we get some great ideas at kind of the surface level, but then when you correlate the different data sets, right? So you look at the demographics of who's leaving what comments.
Oh, yeah, sure.
That tells you a whole nother story.
Sure.
And in the time frame we've had, that we're
And-
not quite there yet.
And
but
you guys
potentially-
will have this data. It's a huge spreadsheet that I'll leave with you. So anybody can dig into that and pull that kind of information out of it.
because hopefully that can tell us some stories about not just the comments, but for example, the people willing to actually put dollars behind their suggestions, who's coming from what perspective. So we can see, where really we have a better chance of success in implementing changes or ideas.
Right.
No, well said.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. Great. Let's move on to agenda item number 8, discussion only, discussion regarding the internal strengths, weaknesses, and external opportunities and threats impacting the goals of the V&T Railway.
Okay.
And I'll turn
Not
it over
sure
to
why.
you, Linda.
Yeah, I'm not sure why that's not showing up. It's showing my screen there, but not my, well, that's on my screen. I know. I know. I mean, I've got it up here. See, you want to see? I'm not sure what it is. Let me go back to this here. Okay. Apparently it's not, yeah. Anyway, what this is now, we want to move on into your SWOT analysis. And I know doing this for years, a lot of folks, not another SWOT analysis. But it really is important for you to identify what strengths you have, what weaknesses you have, your opportunities and your threats. Now, from the survey, I was able to gather quite a bit of information. Your service providers, I asked them specifically, for each one of your goals, what are those strengths that can be applied? What opportunities may exist out there? A lot of those opportunities you saw in some of the feedback. What weaknesses do you have internal? And threats, what's out there? And another threat to add is security, because obviously if you want to do something in the canyon, then security is going to be an issue for sure. So we'll want to add that for sure. So so this is what we have for the, let me see if I can you see that okay? For the strengths, overall positive reputation. The fact that we got that many responses back tells me that you have a good reputation. People are excited about the railway, so that points to that. Success of Polar Express, your staff and volunteers. You now have a steam engine number 18, a great asset. Access to Virginia City. It's a great destination. I guess you have a really good destination. Coordinated efforts of both Story and Carson City. That's really important because you guys can work together to really make something happen. Open spaces for other uses. Your right-of-way for extension of the track, that's in place, so that's a huge part of that project. And then the uniqueness of a historic railroad, those things you don't find just any place. For your weakness, dependence upon ticket sales for revenue. I mean, you have to charge some ticket prices in order to fund it. So, I mean, I don't know if that's a weakness or just a challenge. Limited train car space. I mean, you can only put so many on it. Access to Eastgate traffic, the road condition. It's a little bit of a weakness that came out. And then food and drink facilities on site for visitors. That came out, and I don't know if that's still the case or if that's truly a weakness or not, but that did come out. Opportunities, people like Christmas programs, not just Polar, but there was several comments about what you did this year, some popular things. So it's not just the train, but looking at what other things you can do. Partnerships with other museums and tour operators. We're lucky that we live in an area that is rich with museums and history. The historic resources in the region. The extension of the tracks and the canyon is an opportunity because it's beautiful there. The wild horses and people. I cannot believe how many comments that we got on the wild horses. Demand for public recreation space. The associated areas of possibilities for other historic interpretation. There were several comments about Native American type of interpretive information. Popularity of youth-centered events, scenic resources, and demand for souvenirs. There were several comments about, gee, we'd like to be able to even online to get some V&T-themed type of souvenirs. And then threats, overcrowded. I mean, you don't want to, you can kill yourself with success sometimes, so you want to be able to accommodate that. Further development along the right-of-way that distracts from historic landscapes. There were some comments about through Mound House. It'd be nice to have something better to look at. And could there be more development that could happen that could get in the way of that? The availability of rolling stock. They don't make these steam engines that much anymore, so just being able to get that. And, you don't control the line all the way into Virginia City. So that's definitely a threat. I mean, let's be honest. So I'm going to ask what else you see as that should be on this list.
Can I just ask you a quick question?
Sure.
When you said further development along the right-of-way, are they saying they don't want to see?
Well, just what types of development?
Oh, what types?
What
Okay.
types,
So they
yes.
don't see houses suddenly popping up along the route. They want it
Yeah,
to be
and,
the way
could
that
you
was.
have something that detracts, I guess, from the experience?
Okay. Sure.
Yeah.
The security, I agree. That's definitely an issue. I think up and down the track, for sure, even in the tunnels, as I understood from some conversations last week as well. So
Okay.
anyone want to
Security,
weigh in?
vandalism.
I would, this is Clay, I would just add that on in the strengths column, that we have an operator who has a vested interest in that's locally based, has a vested interest in the success of rail activity in the area.
Okay.
Excellent. Any additional comments from anybody?
Anything else?
Just an observation. The lists were long for strengths and opportunities, so relative to weaknesses and threats. So I like to see that,
That's,
that allocation look like that. So I think that gives us, especially a
you
long
have
list of
things to work
opportunities.
now. I want to go through all these, and we're going to go back and start hooking up tactics. Okay. Now, why?
I'm sorry, I was just going to ask as well, as far as funding sources, is that something we need to acknowledge somewhere in this matrix? Not necessarily the ticket prices, but our other funding sources, and I don't know if those are
Good.
a strength or a threat.
That's a, yeah.
Is it an opportunity? I don't know. Is it a threat? Because right now, there's no guarantee you get any tax funding. There's maybe some opportunities, but I don't know that there is a,
Well, I could speak just from the
System.
CTA as far as our TOT, we're hurting with regard to the lodging tax collections, which is creating the issue where we can't make the additional $65,000 payment, right? So I'd say that's definitely a threat as far as
I would
the lodging
concur.
tax from
Yeah.
our perspective.
Not only that, I mean, that's, nothing lasts forever. That, yeah, there is a initiative in Story County that was passed, but that sunsets at some time, down the road. There will be a need for some type of funding. I don't think without that or with Carson City's support, it doesn't probably survive on just ticket sales.
Agreed. How do we want to phrase that then?
let me-
Diversifying is it an opportunity to look at alternative?
I put a threat down as
Okay.
unavailability of tax support because that may not be there. But
Okay.
the weakness of you are dependent right now on ticket sales. That is a weakness. You
Well,
have limited.
Yeah, or maybe that we're so heavily dependent on, or that we're nowhere close to being self-sustaining, if you will.
Right.
And I don't think we anticipate that it's going to be a moneymaker. I don't. The structure doesn't, to me, look like it's not a profitable venture. That's not why it exists per se. And so,
Right.
anyway, I think you're right as a weakness and potentially a threat that the tax revenue support is uncertain in the future.
Right, right.
Uncertain.
Now, when we looked at the numbers, I mean, if you limited to like Polar Express, you made money on that. I mean,
Right.
certain things you can make money on. So it's a matter of, however, that doesn't necessarily maybe create the economic impact you want throughout the region.
And that's what's hard to measure.
Yeah.
Our return on investment isn't necessarily that we have to make money.
Right.
If we can just break even.
Breaking even, yeah.
Then everybody else makes money, then we win. It comes back the way we're set up. But without that tax base,
Most tourism-related things like this don't.
Right.
They're not hugely profitable.
Stephanie, go ahead.
And maybe another way to word it or even add to it under weaknesses would be that sustainable revenue stream or funding source because that's what we're lacking sustainable revenue stream.
Got too far.
Okay, I think that's good. Yeah, go ahead, Jim, please.
So I look at this as not necessarily a money-making venture. I don't think the train was ever intended to be. It's intended maybe to cover its costs, but not necessarily to make money. And I think that if you start looking at it from a whole, things like the rail bikes that are bringing in money, things like the Polar Express that bring in money, offset some of the things that you do that may not make money. I think there, the demand for souvenirs and food at the event. I mean, there's some opportunities to add some things, both at the depot here and at the depot in Virginia City, to have some vendors come in that would maybe bring in some additional money. So I think there's some opportunities that are not necessarily completely exploited to this point, and I think that there are the diversification of where your money comes from might be something that we want to look at.
Gabe, you'll have to come up, though, on the push the button, sorry.
This is Gabe Williman. Another threat we have is vandalism and theft. I just got a phone call from a guy down next to our shop, and there was some people like grabbing scrap out of next to where we have all of our materials. And he ran them off, and he said if they come back, he's gonna call the cops, and if the cops don't come fast enough, he's gonna shoot them. We've been having a lot of problems. There's like 5 different catalytic converters stolen from that little area. And I had my shop broken into when I was in the big blue building, and that was $13,000 of my equipment stolen. And that's a kind of a big threat. I mean, if they steal all of our spikes and tie plates, they already stole all of our bolts. All of our bolts.
Wow.
We had, 2,000 bolts sitting there? And at $7 a piece, it's quite a chunk of change. So
Yeah.
I say that's a big threat.
I agree.
Yeah, and if some tweaker gets out there and tries to cut the rail up to smaller chunks to move,
Oh, my God, yeah,
That's going to cause a fire,
right,
and then there goes Mount House.
yeah.
So that's,
Let's, go ahead, Elaine.
Yeah, I added that, security vandalism threat.
Well, and
Or theft.
also a huge threat would be in lieu of funding, is it's a costly enterprise to maintain, meaning the track. The track is one of our number one expenses. And if we can't make money to cover the cost of maintaining and fixing our track, that would be a huge problem.
No, I agree. Linda, on the,
Yes.
well, when you bring it,
Yeah,
when you
well,
bring it
hang
back
on,
up, but
hang
I'm
on,
on
adding
page
that one.
14. Can we say, I like Clay's word uncertainty regarding funding
Uncertainty.
instead of unavailable. I like
Okay.
uncertainty, if everybody agrees. Any other, go ahead, Stephanie. Go ahead.
Thank you. Just thinking a little bit more about what Jim said and looking at different ways for different revenue sources. And I think this is something that has already been discussed to a certain extent, but I don't know if it's listed in here, is that there's interest for others to rent the facility for other types of events because it's a nice outdoor location. It has some indoor space. And so again, that's another, I think, opportunity to lease, the depot or grounds as another revenue source.
Great suggestion. We have somebody forthcoming that does want to do exactly that thing this fall, so great idea. So we'll put that under the opportunities. Which page are we on, Linda? 14
we're
or I know
on
we didn't even get to 15 yet, but are you
14,
still
yeah.
working
And I'm
14?
flipping around because I've got them broke up into
Okay.
different areas, and you'll see.
Can-
Let me bring
could
this.
you-
For some reason, this
It's-
will only show my presentation when I'm in presentation mode, and I'm not sure why.
Okay. No,
Because I
no
actually
worries.
had a Word document that I was going to work on, and that's not showing up.
Okay.
So we're going to do it this way.
Nope, that's great.
So, okay.
Does anybody want to add anything to 14?
This again is talking about the visitor experience. I want
Yeah.
to focus that because then let's move to the next one.
Yep.
We can certainly go back. Creating positive economic impact to the region. Again, it's a unique attraction. You have space. You have the ability to run special trains. Opportunities, partnerships with the hospitality businesses in the area. Space available for cooperative events. National and international marketing of tour packages. Again, that guy from Switzerland was really excited about this, okay? Cooperative marketing or packaging with the region, including Lake Tahoe. Corporate sponsorships for events or improvements. Somebody said, hey, have you talked to any large corporations that would like to sponsor a kiosk or sponsor something? Rent spaces for other functions. The weaknesses, limited operation due to weather. You just have one operating season. Lack of convention and meeting space for large groups. Continuity of management, this came up with the comments because you work with a contractor and they can come and go. And so is the lack of that continuity an issue? It's just something to consider. Inadequate agreements with service providers, this was more of a caution. It says that it's there now, but just make sure your service provider agreements provide continuity of service. And then threats, competition with other types of destinations in the region. Somebody comes here, are they going to make the V&T Railway a priority, or are they going to get distracted with things like Tahoe? Inadequate agreements for service providers if you don't have everything covered in those agreements. There were some comments on that. Anything else on the economic impact piece?
Could I just add one thing, Danny?
Sure.
Sponsorship, I think we have a huge opportunity there. And I don't, that could be, well, I can tell you an opportunity that could present itself as far as the rail bikes are concerned. I've had hotels come to me from Carson City and say, hey, we'd love to be on the front or the back or the side or whatever of the rail bike. And so that's a opportunity that would be really cool to take advantage of. I don't know how we work that out, right, with the Freedom Rail folks, but that is something that I'd like to see us look at, or some sponsorship opportunities, because it's sort of just low-hanging fruit, right? And maybe we share that revenue, I don't know, or that sponsorship with our partners or with Tom, if it's a railroad situation with a passenger car or a seat or seats or whatever the case may be. So I like to go beyond just the corporate sponsorships, but just sponsorships of rail bikes or of the train or whatever the case may be, because there's money there that could help us. And really, I don't see a downside for us, especially if our partners are willing to slap that sponsorship or that logo or website or name of that business onto their equipment. I think it'd be great to look at that down the road. Anyone else? I don't want to hog the floor, so.
No, this is Denny. Just one comment on, there may not be anything on this side of the tracks, but on the other side of the tracks, there is a Gold Hill Depot that's sitting there waiting for convention and meeting space.
Oh, that's right.
It'll hold more people than the train will. So,
That's right. Okay.
Excellent suggestion.
Oh, golf. Hang on.
And Denny is just waiting with a hammer and some nails to
ready
start
to go.
putting some walls up, so thank you.
yeah, we even got a roof and some running water. You got to go outside to use a toilet, but hey, we'll get you a porta potty.
Hey, we got to start somewhere.
Part of the authentic experience.
Exactly. Exactly.
This is Jim. I think
go ahead.
one of the things that I saw reading through some of the comments is the opportunity for packages too. A huge opportunity for things like the overnight, staying up in Virginia City overnight,
Yeah, there was quite a few
having a
ones.
package. I mean, when I travel, a lot of times there's like different cities have like go cards, which is a corporate thing, but it's like a list of events that you can pick from. And that's a lot of times I'll look at those as just ideas to get things. And then if you package them together, I've used them in several different cities around the country. And I think there's a huge opportunity locally for us to do that and create a multi-day experience for people who come here.
100% agreed, because we brought some folks together down in Carson City just along those lines with the Railroad Museum, Jim, and the State Museum. We're looking, I'll speak as the CTA now, but at a company called Banwango. And I don't know, Denny, if you guys have looked at them, but think City Pass type setup, Vegas, LA, San Francisco. But the cool thing about Banwango, it's all mobile app, right? You don't have to worry about paper tickets or you're trying to find a wristband or this, that, or the other thing. And we've been trying to figure out ways to incorporate the train, the rail bikes, in addition to museums, right, in Carson City. Same thing with the prison, don't freak out. But how do we incorporate the prison? How do we incorporate Stewart facility as well? Because we get a lot of that feedback from visitors to Carson City. Geez, we wish that we could just one-stop shop, go on, click and add all these things and then go and do them at their leisure, right? And not worry about showing up and something's closed or it's full and they can't, so they can kind of pre-book their things before they come into the area. And it's a great way to tie us together too. With
I didn't hear you say the name, but when you started talking about it,
Banwango, yeah.
we are doing it.
Okay.
We are in negotiations with them right now. Yes.
There you go.
Look at that, Virginia City, always ahead of. Maybe we'll get a discount, Go ahead, Elaine.
Well, we did package for the Polar Express, and I believe I worked with you on that, and it was successful. So we started it year before last, and then of course because of COVID, we couldn't do it in 2020, but we started it in 2019, and we had 5 hotels that we partnered with and packaged.
You're right.
Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot about that, yeah. No, that's a great, Jim, I love it. It's exactly what we need to do. We're still a regional destination at the end of the day, so we can get these folks into different places, and I'm aware Tahoe wants to play with us as well, which I think is just adds to the experience right overall for people, so. Go ahead, Clay.
This is Clay. I was just thinking about one of the things I think we need to be thoughtful about as we look to create that positive economic impact is what do we want to handle internally and what do we want to partner with existing businesses on, and there may be some opportunities there. And so for example, as I saw the comments about food and beverage services, I thought, well, is there a taco truck that we can call? Because then it's quick and easy. We don't have to do any infrastructure to speak of, and it's there, and someone already exists, local, of course, but then, in Virginia City on that end of the line, we want to be cognizant of, it's a small community and not competing with ourselves, if you will, especially given, as Jim pointed out, we're not a money-making operation. A lot of our benefit is indirect to the businesses that then turn around and support through tax revenue. So
That's a great idea. Let's add that on.
Yeah.
I love the
I've
food
got-
truck
I'm
idea.
making notes as we go.
And we could
on some of
do
these.
some sort of lease agreement
Yeah,
at the depot and,
yeah.
yeah. Oh, that's great.
Well,
idea.
and could even alternate if someone wanted to, on certain days or what have, you know what I mean? So you could support
Yeah.
several businesses and just have them on a schedule to support in that way.
Linda, one thing that come up to mind, and I think it fits here. I know you mentioned cooperative marketing there off to the left, and this would be definitely a weakness and/or an opportunity. Marketing overall for the VNT has been confusing to the public since day one. What website to go to, who to call, where to go, where to buy tickets. You got the VNT, the Virginia Truckee, the commission, you get all this stuff. So, and we've tried marketing in a lot of different ways, tried to do it individually. An opportunity would be to have maybe a portal type system, in my mind, where people are, you type in train Nevada, and you're going to get one location that takes you to maybe to where you want to go from there, and not just be, more or less confusing. When you type it in now, it's going to take you to 2 or 3 4 different places. And who's ever spending the most money is probably where you're going to end up for your first call. But it is confusing, and I think that's an opportunity. Again, maybe a past weakness, but it's definitely an opportunity is to have some consistency in our marketing for the general public to know where to go. And some of those changes that we're probably going to be talking about may help that.
That's a great observation. Yeah, I agree, because you've got a link and we've got a link, and I know we're all trying to get them to vntrailway.com at the end of the day, but you're right. It's a byproduct of how much we're spending. They may come to us first or you first, and I think consistency with that information too before they even get to the end product is important as well, that we're actually saying the same thing about what's running, when it's running, what's open, what's not, would be helpful too, because I can tell you we've been off a little bit, like a week or 2 behind last year in terms of the changes that were being made even on our own website relative to what was on vntrailway.com. So then we're paying catch up to change the information, make sure it's consistent after talking to Elaine. So yeah, good.
Okay.
Any
Okay.
further discussion on page
Oops, let me
15?
get that.
Let's go to 16 then.
Okay. So managing and protecting taxpayer investments into the railway. Strengths is your representation, both counties, and you've got a governmental representation. The maintenance vendor competence, that did come out in the comments. Opportunities, corporate sponsorships for events and for improvements. That's really having to do with improvements. Could you have some infrastructure that a corporate sponsor wants to get involved with? Weaknesses, lack of an engine house and yard tracks at Eastgate. Weakness, again, funding, and how are you going to adequately fund that maintenance? Because so many times, maintenance is the easiest thing to delay, and that can be a problem. The continuity of management can be an issue in that, and keeping that maintenance up. Threats, competing rail operator users, conflicts in use of that track, okay, if you have more than one operator. A threat could be dependence on one train operator. You want to make sure that you have that continuity. Security, vandalism, and theft is a big one as far as protecting your asset there. And the cost of track maintenance. There is a cost to that, but it's really important. So anything else having to do with investments?
So
The
since we added the future expansion opportunities under the goal under this one, can we include something around that as an opportunity, that we have assets that we can expand and make
Yep.
future further use of? Any other comments on this one? Nope.
And I'm not sure, as far as liability, if that's something that has ever come up. I mean, anytime you're running any type of a visitor-based service, liability, making sure you're covered on your liabilities.
You mean like if somebody were to be injured or?
Yeah,
Let's make, I think we should make a notation of that.
yeah, I just want to put that on the list. Any kind of liability is going to be a threat, just because you just want to make sure that all your insurance is where it needs to be and such. Okay. for some reason I can't get it right. D.
Or-
Under
oh, go ahead.
opportunities, would it be a good idea to put, protocols, develop protocols? Especially when there are incidences, so that we have protocols to follow, and because we have
Yeah.
not just, there are 3 different entities out there that have liability hanging over them.
I think that's a great idea.
I'm going to put that down as a tactic because definitely that's something that has to be done.
You like safety or operating protocols? Yeah.
Okay.
Nope, that's fine. Are we,
Okay.
everybody okay to go to, sorry,
The
I
last
don't want to
one?
cut anybody off, but 17? Yeah.
Okay, so how to be part of the communities that you support. Again, your governing body is made up of both of the communities. There's a lot of community pride in the VNT. Enthusiastic volunteers and local railroad enthusiasts, that's a strength. Weaknesses, this came up in the comments, lack of an active foundation supporting it, and I know there is a foundation, but it's not active at this point. Recruitment and training opportunities for volunteers, and I don't know if you have a program for doing that, trying to keep volunteers current, and that's a huge effort, trying to keep your volunteers up. But
Was that in reference to sort of like how the museums are set up with the Friends of the Nevada State Railroad Museum? Is that where that might have
as
been
far
coming
as
from?
the foundation,
Yeah,
or the volunteers.
Yeah, the volunteer,
I
the
think
docent.
that what this had to do with is, okay, how are you going to keep an active core of volunteers? How do you
Gotcha.
recruit them, train them, keep them involved? Because they can very quickly become the backbone of your operation. So just being aware of that. And then youth outreach, how do you keep, the comments were made about, hey, people interested in railway operations are getting older. How are you going to get younger people involved and get those
That's a
going?
very important piece, because when I worked for the state, Linda, this is the exact issue we have about the Nevada State Railroad Museum, is younger people, so that we had
Right.
programs where you could bring them in and they could work on the
They learn
equipment
about
and
these
they learn
things,
about it and
right.
engage and, yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Opportunities, partnerships with the state museums, can we share some volunteers or come up with recruiting and common type of opportunities? Partnerships with other hobby groups to develop and support theme events. The use of the depot as meeting space for nonprofits. Bringing in small businesses to provide services. That's a way of getting the community, if you use local businesses, they feel more a part of the VNT Railway. And using youth theater groups, because I know we have some here in Carson to help with that historic narration and storytelling. A threat is funding shortfall of the state museums. I mean, that can get in the way of any of those types of partnerships too.
Yeah.
So anything to add to this one as far as?
Tom, I don't know if it's okay if I could I won't be specific, but you've been engaged with the folks at the Nevada State Railroad Museum exchange of equipment, right? And bringing some of the assets that the state has onto the track. So I think that's a huge opportunity, and that excites people, right? To be able to ride the McKean or whatever, the case may be. So I would like to recommend we add that on as well as exchange of, assets with state museum or other partners, however we want to say that. Anybody? Yeah, go ahead, Stephanie.
One of the things that came up in the survey, and, there was quite a large number of respondents that were actually residents. So I think something that could be an opportunity is for us to consider that, whether it be like a locals discount or a locals day or local events, because, the local communities are part of supporting the railway. And so I think, we have so many ways where we want them to come in and help us, but I think likewise giving them, an opportunity to do something that's more for locals would be advantageous as well.
Excellent suggestion. Clay or Jim, you want to add anything on?
I have just a couple thoughts unfortunately, on the negative side. The first one has to do, and I don't know exactly how to word this, but it has to do with kind of the boom and bust, the scaling up and scaling down in Virginia City, and that being either a threat or a weakness because it either encourages or discourages our operations of the railway. And so, and what I mean by that is, it may not make sense for us to run a long line train up there on Street Vibes weekend when the town is completely packed and not necessarily compatible with a family experience. Versus, anyway, we just need to be cognizant of how we make sure there's synergy as opposed to, not really accomplishing the goals on both sides. And then on the threat side as well, we're a fairly, I think as a rule, Nevada runs fairly slim on the government side, and I don't know what kind of appetite there is for continued public funding. As things sunset, for example, we just don't know how secure that is. And I think if we can do well in being part of the communities, that may continue to make sure we have that support. It's just kind of an uncertainty at this point.
Agreed. Anyone else?
Okay.
Linda, do you feel like you're
I'm
good on
good.
8?
Yeah, we can go ahead
Let's-
now.
Yeah, let's move on to agenda number 9 for possible action, discussion and tentative approval of tactics for inclusion in the V&T Railway Strategic Plan. Go ahead,
Okay.
Linda, take it away.
Now, if you look at what I have up here and you match those strengths and opportunities together, you should find some things that you guys can do you've got the strength to do it, the opportunities there. You guys have already named several of them. You also want to look at the threats and your strengths. What can you do now to offset any of those threats going forward that you really need to put on your tactics list? And if you have you got an opportunity you'd like to take advantage of, but you have a weakness, what can you do? What tactic can you take to address that weakness? So those are the ways that I'd encourage you to look at this list as you develop, okay, over the next 5 years, these are some of the things we want to pursue. And then I'm going to sit here and I'm going to list these. One that I got from an earlier discussion was developing that common portal for visitor information. When you look at providing unique and positive experiences for visitors, you want them to be able to get to the information sooner. So I've got that down as one of the tactics. And I probably missed some of the other great ideas that were coming out, so if you could throw those out there to me.
Go ahead, Jim.
So I look at this as where do we want to be in the next year, not necessarily the next 5 years. We have you've got some longer term stuff that you can work toward, but it should be what step do we want to take in the next year that we think we can accomplish in the next year toward that 5-year goal, not necessarily the whole tactic for the 5 years.
And the reason I say 5 years is because you may, once you get that list, you may, as you're brainstorming, you might want to put that on a note for a future year. So sure.
So I look at a couple of things. One is the standardization of the marketing that, like you said, I think that's an area of taking advantage of some opportunities. I think it would be relatively easy to add things like food truck type vendors and charge a small fee for and have it on maybe on some sort of schedule. But I think that's another one because that seemed to come across quite a bit in the comments that there was not food or drink available, especially on days when it's really hot at the depot in the summer. I think that's another area that it doesn't take much. It wouldn't be a permanent thing. It would be something that would be just temporary. So there's not a whole lot to it. I think another one is kind of like looking at. I think we should really start over the next year into some kind of a partnership with doing like the overnight stays or a multiple event experience that kind of, I think those are things that we can do now or work toward now. And these are things to me we should be able to come back in a year from now and say, what did we do out of what we said we were going to do? And what looks better today than it did a year ago? And these are things where I think that we can do things today that we can come back a year from now and say, yeah, these are gonna be the things that are gonna help.
That's great feedback, Jim. Thank you. Anybody want to add to that?
Yeah, I have a thought or two. So I think one of our key tasks or tactics that we're going to need to look at in this time of great transition is ensuring continuity. internally and with outside vendors, providers, and strengthening agreements or contracts, making sure they're sufficient, and whatever kind of organizational things we need to do internally to make sure that we've got that continuity. And I think that's important because it's not sexy work, so to speak, but it kind of has to be done. I was thinking of a couple things joined in my mind, and I was, some people were hot and souvenirs, and I was like, what about branded fan spray bottles, right? But again, that's something that we don't even have. I mean, I hate to say it, but I don't have time to go research that, even as a working board member, and so we need to kind of get the structure in place and make sure we're set there, and then we can pass that. We can pass that to or those individual ideas, but making sure that we're well structured to do a lot of the things internally, so that we can move forward. In addition to I think your suggestions are excellent. I think a focus on things that we can do quickly without huge capital costs, or I mean, bringing in outside vendors means they're responsible for permitting and those kind of things. We can see if they can provide some shade structures, which is another thing that was, some pop-ups or something that go along with them. Again, quick and easy fixes to meet needs right away. I think that's an excellent focus for us in the short term as we work towards longer term goals as well.
Jim, go ahead.
So, and I think part of that was looking for the diversification and stability going long term. Right? Until you get some of this diversification and stability, you're always going to be fighting that uphill battle. And I think from the souvenirs was a big one for me in reading through a lot of the comments, and I think this kind of, to me, goes back to this person that we're going to recruit for. That person should be doing a lot of this day-to-day type work, not necessarily members of the commission. That's what we are paying the general manager or whatever. I think it's got a different title, but whatever we're paying that person for, they're the ones that should be, bringing, here are some ideas for souvenirs or different things. I think that the other piece for me, the marketing piece, and I think it got said earlier, was not being able to sell it online after the fact. I mean, I think that's another one that it takes some effort and time to get that kind of infrastructure together, but I think that the long-term return is huge.
Go ahead, Elaine. Yeah.
So a lot of this it's the new opportunity. It's because the rail bikes are there, we could do food. In the past, well, not this year because of COVID, but the train customers were there from 9 to 10 and gone. And then there'd be nobody there for the rest of the day until they returned. Well, now we've got this rail bike program that's keeping people there longer and all day. So the food is definitely a viable option now. And we've had a lot of people inquire. The souvenirs, we had the fans on the train because it did get hot. But Tom had his store, at the depot for at least a couple of years before COVID hit. And they did pretty good business. And he had a lot of souvenirs. And, remember Virginian Trucking, V&T, that's Tom's, he's got that trademark. And so that's why having the store there, the retail store there, maintain that for the train merchandise, and then moving the rail bike merchandise into the depot as per the amendment that was just, that we spoke about last meeting. There's a lot more available. Rail bike merchandise sold out. So people do like the souvenirs. And I'm sure Tom can vouch to the souvenirs in the gift shop. I thought that they were quite busy all of the time.
Great suggestions, everybody. Anybody? Denny?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I guess, put a word of caution, and I hope I say this correctly, or everybody gets what I'm trying to say. We've got an opportunity right now to do something unique. We're probably looking at some private-public type partnerships here, and one thing I don't want to see this board get into is really deciding who's going to sell or do what. That should be kind of left up to the expert, kind of like running the train. And I hope that's the kind of the mindset going forward is we want to work with folks who are the professionals who are the best in what they do. Like, for instance, the store you mentioned. Tom Gray's had a shop up in Virginia City selling trinkets for longer than I've been around, and he does pretty good at it. So absolutely, we let him dictate because I guarantee if the fans don't sell, they're not in his store. So he'll take care of that, supply and demand, if you will. But with that, it's again unique because we're responsible up here for certain things, and the marketing piece is going to be a little muddy. We got to kind of look through that a little bit. We got to do what's overall the best. We got to make sure that we're taking into consideration all these stakeholders, but also working with a private business. So it's going to take a little flexibility, but we're going to have to sometimes be thinking a little 30,000 feet. But I just caution us not to get down into the weeds too much as we go through this transition, because that stuff will get worked out.
Anything else?
Stephanie, go ahead.
Sure. Just
And then Jim.
just a thought, or kind of thinking out loud. We saw a lot of input on different types of events that could be brought, train events that could be brought to the railway, and we've also talked about sustainability and funding sources and need for additional revenues. So just a thought is, what about exploring some signature events that are actually utilized for fundraising opportunities. So we do something a little different, ticket price is a little bit more expensive, but the reason for that is the goal is, to complete a new pavilion or, add on to the track or whatever those particular items are. So just a thought thrown out there.
Great idea.
That's a great idea, yeah. I like that idea.
Could I build on that just
Yeah.
a bit? If we had a functioning foundation that was a C3 that could sponsor those events, then there's even a little more of a kicker.
Add that,
The reaching
Yeah,
out
just to
to,
yeah.
okay.
please.
There
Go
is a foundation, and we renewed it. And right now it's myself, Stan, and Mike Santos. So I'll be speaking to you all about who wants to take it over. And it did go defunct, but we renewed it last year, and it's going to need a new, board of directors.
Right.
Okay.
One of the other things that we might think about is on kind of this event side, they talked a little earlier about events in Virginia City that may not be compatible with running a train all the way up into Virginia City. And on those weekends, you run something else. You run a different event train on those weekends that we can't go all the way into Virginia City for logistical reasons.
That's a great idea too, yeah. Linda, sorry, you're catching up?
Yeah,
go ahead.
I'm writing all this down. What I'm going to do after we go through all these, I'm going to bring it back to you. I'm going to ask you, okay, here's your plan, and
Yeah.
then I'll go off and write it. Okay?
Okay.
Anything else? On that one?
Any-
Okay, let's go
anything
to the next one then. Creating a positive impact in the region. There we go. Pursuing the visitor packages. And let's see. The visitor packages is what I got out of that one. What else do we have on that? Anything else? Site.
Dave, I didn't necessarily put these in the order of the goals. What I was thinking
Sure.
is maybe this is something that Linda can bring back to
Yeah,
us.
I will.
That she can take all of our idea. I was just throwing out ideas,
Throwing out
not
any-
necessarily
okay.
putting them in any.
Well, and the reason I'm
specific.
taking you through that is if anybody has any thoughts specific to that. just
And I agree, but I'm
dragging
thinking
that stuff
instead of
out.
approving today, having you bring them back, kind of like you did with the goals and
And what I'm going to show you when we get through this will not be in final form in any way, shape, or form. It's just getting your thoughts, and then I'll wordsmith it from
That's
there.
all, yeah, today,
Yeah,
Jim,
yeah.
it was just getting thoughts because we still have strategic plan development, implementation plan development too. And so it was just, I think Linda wanted to know, is this what you guys want me to take and move forward, as far as putting the plans together?
Yeah, and so anything to build on as far as you've given me a very long, a long list, but anything else having to do with positive in economic impact?
Linda, I'll say my feeling is most of these, with perhaps the exception of what Jim was talking about earlier with packaging of, most of these seem to me like a phase two.
Okay.
And I don't know if the rest of the board agrees, but that, to me, these are after we really get a lot of our structural stuff in
Get the structure
place.
done.
Then these are kind of the next step to make sure we're really succeeding.
Okay. Okay, protecting the taxpayer's investment. The one thing I've got is developing those protocols for operational protocols.
I think that's something we can look at for the next year, for sure.
Right.
Do we feel a need to put some tactic in place to address the security issues
Yeah.
Yes.
in the short term?
Elaine, tell us sorry, not to put you on the spot, but what do we have in place now? Just walk us, Jim's new, so I think it'd be helpful, so he understands too what we
Okay.
do have in place, which I know is not perfect, obviously.
Yeah, so we have 6 cameras at the depot itself because they require the internet service. And those have worked very well. And then the main problem now, also at the depot, I put a watchman there in a travel trailer because we were having weekly issues out at the depot it became a popular spot for some, shady stuff going on, and mainly because we're out of sight. So we worked with the police department on that, but we decided to go ahead and put the watchman there. We haven't had any incidents whatsoever, except for, Gabe was saying down below at those facilities. That's definitely an improvement over the past 3 years since I've been there. That this year was a great correction. Now, down in the canyon, it's there. Yeah, it's wild country out there, and there is a transient problem. We have had people that have set up, temporary homes near our tracks, and we've had to call the rangers and ask them to, have them moved. But the rangers do go down into the canyon, and they watch it. But it's what it is? It's the access. It's easy access to our tracks. And if there was a way of being able to either, put up some type of, to block off some of the trails and, roads leading right up to the tracks, that's a problem. And I do believe Ken and I had a discussion on that, on what we could and could not, put barricade a little bit more, or we took care of it at the depot. So at the depot, we had the same situation where we had a road coming up from behind at the depot. We put one of the city's barriers there. We put another barrier down on the road, the rail bed, and to block out, to block the rail bed going up to our parking lot. There's just so many access roads and trails going to our tracks. That's where the problem comes from. So probably a discussion to see what can be done, especially because we have right of way, and then property, some of that we do own. So it's going to take it'll be a project. But
Yeah.
the canyon is a problem.
Okay. Great. Any further
Anything else on
comments
that?
for Linda? Go ahead, Jim, yeah.
Microphone does not like me. I think one of the other things, and I think we're going to talk about it here in a little bit, is we need to probably finalize over the next year the agreements and a cycle of renewals, so that the board is not overwhelmed at any one given time. But I think that's another one that I think that we need to, as an organization. I think that helps us protect the investment, having those concrete agreements in place with all of our vendors.
Agreed. So
Okay.
I don't think we need a formal motion here. I think unless,
What about, I've got one more for you to think about, volunteers being part of the community. Is there anything else? I've got down the local discounts, looking at local discounts, the fundraising, the foundation as falling under that. How do you become really a part of the community? Any other ideas?
And you said the partnership piece too, right?
Pardon me?
The partnership piece with either our state museums or
Yes.
our nonprofit operate, like the prison as an example, but, okay. Sorry, I don't have that page, but anybody want to add anything from what we already discussed on this one?
Let me just really quick, I'm going to see if this shows up, see if technology works with me or not. There it is. Oh, can barely see it though. Okay, so let me just quickly go through this. For the visitor experience, common portal for information for visitors, standardization of marketing, looking at food truck vendors, creating packages, multiple event and packages with the hospitality industry, examining souvenirs and other merchandise on site and online. Under economic impact, a couple repeats here is the visitor packages, commercial sponsorships for trains and events and rail bikes, looking for local businesses to provide the food service, look for opportunities to work with existing providers to serve railway visitors. For example, gift shop, maybe contract with somebody that already does a gift shop. Examine running other types of train and events when Virginia City has their events going. So there's some cooperation that can go on there. For the taxpayers' investment, develop operational protocols, look at those security issues and find some solution to those, and strengthen all the provider agreements and emphasize continuity. And then for the communities, possibility of local discounts, signature fundraising events, a foundation, and then partnerships with other cultural assets. That's what I got.
That seems like a pretty good list. Anybody see anything that's missing maybe? Jim, go ahead.
Okay. One more, I think that, and you just said it, was about the volunteers. I think that's something that needs to be started to be looked at, a training program to have additional ones, because we're kind of gearing up out at the prison and trying to recruit volunteers to do the tours, and you have to train them and you have to find them, and then you have to make sure that they're available. And so you need a pool of those people, and I think that that's one that we probably should be working on now. I mean, at least a long-term plan. It doesn't need to be done this year, but a common training of them, a common recruitment or a regular recruitment. I think those are things that will help us in the long term.
Agreed. And we have an opportunity, I think, there to reach out to Myron, who's the acting interim administrator of Division of Museums and History, because they actually have a full program, right, when they onboard people. So we could maybe they could impart that wisdom on us. How do you handle that, for the Train Museum, State Museum? So I don't think we have to recreate the wheel. We can maybe piggyback on what they already do and make something work for us, so, okay.
Okay, very good.
All right.
Next steps, I'll bring back a written plan where you'll be able to make any other changes on it. And then included in that will be a work plan, and we can talk about phasing. At what point, for example, this year you may want to focus on those agreements and how you want to stage this, okay? That's it.
Thank you very much, Linda. And Mike, just question, I know we just had it as for possible action, but since there's 50 different things that we've just walked through, Linda, I think, has direction. Is that okay? To not have a motion? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's adequately noticed.
Okay. Wonderful. Geez, Linda, thank you. I mean, that was easy. Push the button. That was fun, huh? Yeah, go ahead, Denny.
That was good. That's great.
Yeah. Thank you. With that, I want to take a quick recess, and then we're going to resume the rest of the agenda just to let everybody do what they need to do to unhook the computers and all that good stuff. So we'll recess for 5 minutes. we're going to go ahead and reconvene the Nevada Commission for the Reconstruction of the VNT Railway. And we are now on agenda item number 10 for possible action. Discussion and possible action regarding a request for proposal for the hiring of a VNT admin operations coordinator. In your packet is the RFP for this particular contract, and I want to thank Denny and Elaine. Obviously got us started with the different potential scopes depending on the position title at the last meeting, and Denny took it from there and refined it. And I also want to thank Jim for formatting it correctly to the state standards. So with that, Elaine, I don't know if you want to add anything, or I'll open it up for discussion as far as the commission is concerned regarding the RFP at this time.
This is Clay. My only comment is I think it's excellent. I think it's comprehensive. Kudos to those of you who did the work on this. I think it's a good place for us to go. I'm supportive.
Great, thank you, Clay. Stephanie?
Thank you. Yes, likewise, I agree. I'm excited to see what kind of opportunities it opens for us.
Wonderful. Jim or Denny, any comment? If not,
No,
I'll
I'm good.
entertain a motion then.
I'll take a stab at this one. I'll make a motion, Denny Dotson, to approve the request for a proposal for hiring of the VNT Railway Admin / Operations Coordinator.
Thank you, Denny. We have a motion. Do I have a second? Go ahead.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion by the commission? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. I will make sure that we get this out, Elaine. We'll roll it tomorrow. So wonderful. Moving on to item.
David, just real quick
Oh, go ahead.
question.
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Did you decide we're going to then advertise it in the two newspapers?
Yeah. How does the commission feel about putting it into the Appeal and the RGJ? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Let's go ahead and do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Wonderful. Great. Sorry, Elaine, I forgot to mention that. Agenda item 11 for possible action, discussion and possible action regarding fiscal year 2021 financial reports of the VNT Railway Commission and the proposed tentative budget for fiscal 22. And huge thanks here. I know Denny took up the 22 budget. Thank you for that with Jennifer and Elaine, and they met. And so in your packets, you have the results of those conversations. So I'll turn it over to Elaine to get started.
Okay, so I'll just quickly go over the budget report. This is for month ending February 28th, 2021. Again, very little coming into the VNT right now. I did cut off ticket sales as per our last meeting. And so when you see March, you'll see that there is also very little coming in at this point. Just special license plates. And right now, that's about it. Even the Draco payment that we were getting monthly, we're still working on that. So that'll be a couple months from now before you start seeing that $5,300 coming in. Expenses are very minimal. They're just to keep the lights on. You'll see some savings here, coming in the months as well when you're not having to pay your general manager. I would like, though, if you would, to look at the budget. I think we're still I didn't check the bank account before I left the house today, but we've been averaging about $400,000 in the bank. And so I know that there's still some money that's owed to Story County. And so you can discuss that at the next meeting as well. But again, very little money going out or coming in. Expenses are just basically professional services, keeping the lights on, and then paying for Linda's services. We still need to get out there though and do a little bit of work on the tracks before April 17th. That's all I have.
Are there any questions about our 2021 financial report through February?
I was just curious what the special event expense line item is that was there. It's not a ton, but it's something left over from the past.
It is, it's something that came in later, and I'm trying to find it right now. If I look at it, I'll be able to tell you. Was it, for February? Yeah, that was for the holiday event. Can you tell me how much it is?
1256,
$12.56.
64. Yeah, it's
Special, yeah,
above the professional services line item, about 7 lines.
Oh,
and
gotcha.
Below the track maintenance.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's just something, it was a late invoice that related to the holiday
Gotcha.
event that was in December. It's probably one I had to reach out to somebody and say, hey, I
Yeah.
need your invoice
Yeah,
now.
no problem.
Yeah.
And the casual labor, is that tied to anything in particular? Is that a regular ongoing?
Well, that was, the only one I kept was on to work with me to see us through this transition was Angie.
Okay.
And she's no longer with us now. And she was doing our minutes, or she'd do first stab at the minutes, and then she would help me with commission meetings. And then, of course, when we reopened and got ready, the depot ready for the season, she was my right-hand man. She was the only one I kept.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you.
Right. If the commission's okay, we'll move on to the fiscal '22 budget and then maybe just do a single motion to approve both. Is that okay?
Sure, whatever you need.
Any, do you want to?
I'll take the lead,
Yeah,
yeah. on this one
please.
here. So after taking our crystal ball out and dusting it off, you know, what an exercise it was been trying to put a tentative budget together, knowing that we're probably moving a couple areas in a different direction. So I guess the bottom line is when we go through this here a little bit, if you have questions, I'm pretty sure between Elaine and myself, we can probably answer it. There's some items, actually quite a few, that have changed and gone into more of a generic bucket, if you will, that's allowed us to be a little more flexible as we look at some private-public type partnerships or contracts. So where we necessarily be paying them directly for instance, maybe maintenance or marketing might be good examples. Maybe not paid directly. We might still have some involvement or some sponsorship, and it would come out of a different bucket. So just again, to leave us some flexibility there. And thanks to Elaine for really starting this process. She's been doing it for a few years, and kind of got it pretty much lined out. And all I really did with our team and then presenting it to Jennifer, the comptroller at Story County, was just add a couple of these items that I think that would go into a different bucket. Just to note, one of the projections that Elaine did and that we were looking at for this fiscal year that we're currently in, and it looks like we'll probably still be on unless something drastic happens. Revenue is going to be about a little over 630,000 is I think what we're projecting, and expenses about 510,000. So we should end up with a little extra in the Indian fund balance as we roll into this next fiscal year. So with that, if you got revenue up, great. Okay, so just to there's not a lot of items here. We could probably walk through this pretty easily, and I can explain, and maybe we'll take questions on from the board here or the public after revenue, and then we'll go into expenses. Really, it's pretty much the same here with license plates. That's a consistent average that we get. Same thing with the potential grants. That would be related to tourism grants from Travel Nevada. We left out Carson City as far as the interlocal support. Story County has the MOU for the $250,000. And the reason we left out Carson, and Dave, you can add to that if you like, is it's still unknown. It's not that Carson City doesn't want to contribute. They have to make sure that they have the funds there first. So I would not be comfortable putting those funds in there and trying to budget that. It would be a nice surprise at the end of the fiscal year versus something we budgeted and then not get, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Denny, I appreciate that because we don't know ourselves, right? We're still working on our projections for '22 as far as what we can or cannot do, and Denny and I spoke about this. I would rather we go with a 0, and then if it turns out as we get into June 2022, it looks like we've been able to make our 2 bond payments that we're required to do with the 2% that is part of our 11%, we'll have a better idea, I guess, probably May of next year as to what we can do. And I think we'll just do a budget augmentation at that point to be able to receive those funds. But I wasn't comfortable saying that we can make that $65,000 payment right now, just based on where I have our lodging tax projections kind of tentatively set up. So.
So with that, you go down to the next item there, the sale of property at Draco. That would be your annual repayment on that lease with the Draco property. You've got the rail bike split is put in there. That's through the current contract I think we're talking about here in just a few agenda items. I left out the other items. Again, similar example. I left out the regular season and the Polar Express revenue to 0. We're not sure yet on that. We don't think that, we may be working with somebody else, another person. That person would collect that revenue. So better than, look at that crystal ball, and we just figured we'd leave it empty right now for now. But I will caution everyone that as soon as we do get this tentative, we do have a couple action items on here to talk about contracts. Our goal, I think my goal will be to try and still get some of this detail worked out so that when we do submit a final budget, we can make some amendments and some changes to it. Okay? So again, we had timeline. We had to approve a tentative today. So there's still a lot up in the air and a lot to be still worked through. And then going down in the rest of that, let me see. Again, the real other stuff is a lot of unknowns, just contributions, a donation just to have a little bit of bucket of money, but that, and I'm not sure this is the right one, Dave. This is the one I know it's in our packet here, but did we have, we did have Engine 18 on there. I'm sorry, I'm looking at an old one on my sheet.
Yeah,
My own sheet's an older one.
Yeah,
So I'll look
36203.
on the screen is right, correct.
Yeah.
I didn't say anything else. It was a draft in front of me. The Engine 18 lease, again, we don't know really exactly how that's going to work. Typically, there are expenses related to that each year, and we budgeted about $15,000 for that. So I just made it a line item just to balance it off. Again, so that I don't know how that's going to work in the 18 with a new contract, but if we can adjust that if need be. And then the contributions. So that again puts us the total for revenue is the top of that page at $481,700. Okay. Any questions from the board on?
Anybody? Questions for Denny or Elaine?
I guess my only question would be how confident are we on the rail bike split? Is that a fairly solid estimation, or is it still a little preliminary?
So I can answer that.
Go ahead, Elaine.
So I came up with the numbers for the rail bike projections for Freedom Rail, and it was based on how much we did last year to this year. And I basically doubled it. And we did half the season last year. So it's even shy. It's very conservative.
Gotcha. So that's based off last year, and this year we're looking at greater capacity because of more bikes mid-season, so on and so forth,
Right.
plus a double long season.
Right, so we're kicking the season off April 17th.
Yeah.
This year, it started August 8th
Yeah.
last year.
Great.
And then in addition to a larger fleet, which will begin in June.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, I guess we can go to expenses. Okay, great. Expenses, again, you can see the total at the top there. It did match up to the same number as revenue, $481,700. Again, we still have some work to do here. And I don't really know if I need to go through every one of these items here. It's pretty much boilerplate, if you will. It's just an average. Elaine did fill out most of these. I think they're just based on what we've spent over the last 3, 4, 5 years. So it's pretty much self-explanatory. We still have to maintain a facility. We will have a little bit of travel. There'll still be some dues and subscriptions. You mentioned the internet hosting for security. We still got to,
Excuse me, Denny, just,
Yeah.
Elaine, up near the top, there was a little drop-down menu that I think had a rotation option.
on
Yeah,
the view, yeah.
Oh, wait, there we go. Oh,
Couple more, there you go.
there we go, thank you.
Get a little kink in the neck there, huh, Clay? Yeah.
I was holding my,
It's like, I
holding my
don't know where it
laptop.
went.
That's all good. It's all good. Okay, so I'll keep going there. Dues and subscriptions, that's pretty much the standard. We still have some things to do from an administrative standpoint, including the Eastgate Depot. You still got power, water, propane, trash, pest control, pretty standard. We left the Polar Express royalties blank. Again, if someone else is collecting that revenue, they would be taking care of that portion. Track maintenance, we did bump that up a little bit. There is, an emphasis to get some of things going, and so I put 100,000 into that. Again, some of this would be, for the most part, all just hard costs. This would not be professional services. Okay. There's that opposite 15,000 for the engine repairs on 18. Eastgate Depot, again, your building repairs, maintenance, pretty much standard stuff. On second page, then in here we got some professional services. And what I did here, we did, is kind of lump some numbers together. We really took what we've been paying, we put it into some staffing and labor, and we put it into the admin specialist. Again, these are just numbers I think we can pull from. If we need to hire and add somebody, it gives us a little flexibility there from those two totals. Again, the one that I mentioned earlier is that marketing. Down below professional services, you see where there's stuff like print advertising, rack cards, online, social media. I didn't feel that that was the direction we were headed, so I went and put it into a lump sum where the marketing would include professional fees, labor, and hard costs. So, okay. And then the one thing I did want to flag, and I is the audit. That one there is that's a lot of money, and I know that if our budget over the last 3 or 4 or 5 years has been pretty complex. We've gone from 2 budgets, one a fiscal year, one a calendar year. We've put it all to basically a private system into a governmental accounting system, and it's been muddy. And no wonder we got charged so much. But I think as we go forward, we got to look at what we're paying there, and and if we need to look elsewhere for an audit, I think it's something to look at. I guess I'm not saying that we have to, but that just seems like an awful lot of money.
Denny, I just, if I could jump in real quick, yeah, I agree. Just knowing what we pay as the CTA, it's a fraction of that. So I would like to think with one single funding source, we should be down in that $10,000 to $12,000 range. So, yeah.
And hopefully by streamlining this, going to some separate contracts, we're not doing so much that maybe that makes the county less tough to figure out and balance.
Denny, just to make a point, we're going from a budget that was averaged about 1,500,000 to, looking to $500,000.
Mm-hmm.
It's minimal accounting.
Okay, so going forward then, again, there's nothing for the individual marketing items that went up on the top. Capital outlay, it seems like there's always something that pops up. So having that money there for a capital improvement of some type is always good. And we've always traditionally done that, had some money sitting there for those. The rest of it's media insurance premiums. Basically, that's kind of it. Again, balancing out at $481,700. I'll entertain questions, Mr. Chair.
No, thank you. You
Unless-
guys,
I'm sorry.
No, I just thank you. I mean, I
Yeah.
appreciate the work that you put in on this.
Unless Jennifer from the Comptroller's Office had anything else you wanted to add, I want to get her comments.
No, I think you've covered everything. Thank you. Unless anybody has a specific question for me or the reports that I created for taxation.
Anybody have a question for Jennifer or Denny or Elaine? Elaine, go ahead.
Just to also let you know that 200,000 that we'll be getting from for the Draco property from Roy Street, that is not part of this, that you can decide if you're going to put that in a reserve and, you know, how you're going to treat that. We did not include that in this budget. Okay. And did you bring the paperwork today so we could get the signatures? Very good.
No, thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Any further questions? Go ahead, Jim.
I'm just going to ask one question, just because, I mean, we're excluding pretty much all of the operating a train expense, but we still have a $75,000 line for marketing. It seems like a lot to pay if there's nothing to market.
Okay, think of marketing as a sponsorship. If we are an entity, much like Dave would do or myself would do, we're going to have an event in our town, we're going to have something, but we want to be sure and to support that, we can do it in the form of a sponsorship. So maybe that could be a different line item outside of that versus professional services. I agree. That would be maybe less confusing, but I still strongly believe that we're going to have to be involved in the marketing of helping market all of the activity within the V&T Railway some way. So however we put that in the budget, there should be something in there for that.
And Jim, just when Denny and I spoke about this too, that would include the rail bikes, which are going to be running, you know, next month through October. I'm not saying we put $75,000 behind it, but there will be some opportunities, I think, that would come up. Would you prefer to see that? Decouple sponsorship from, you know, marketing or the website? Because we still have ongoing website maintenance, right? I definitely see us, you know, from the commission's perspective, like from a public relations standpoint, I think it's good to have that voice, you know, still. And so we were trying to kind of simplify it and just have some dollars in there. And then as things unfold, we could figure out what we would spend on and wouldn't spend on.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's a website and some ongoing costs that are necessary, almost really regardless of whether the train is running or not. And I get that the rail bikes are there, but you know, we're spending $75,000 for $125,000 worth of revenue. It's just a lot. I would prefer to see that broken out, to see what it is that we're getting for that $75,000 with this budget that says no train operations. I mean, I get if we had a train operation, what would it be? How would it be different? How would that marketing line? What would those marketing costs and the online advertising costs and the print advertising costs, what would that look like? No running versus running, I guess, is kind of what I'm looking at.
Yeah, I right now it's a little. We talked about it being a little bit muddy, the marketing side. You've got Virginia City marketing the train. You've got Tom, the V&T marketing himself. You got the commission marketing itself. You've got Carson City Visitor Bureau marketing it, and we don't want to take away from the overall. You know, I think pool, if you will. We just got to figure out a way to support it correctly. Maybe, you know, do we need 4 different marketing entities? I don't know if that's the right answer or not, but I think the dollars could be used constructively within whoever's going to take the lead on the marketing, whether it's privately or publicly. So maybe it is a different line item that says sponsorship for those dollars versus just, you know, even though it's like what we do in Virginia City is somebody comes to us and wants a sponsorship, we require some invoicing or make sure this goes towards marketing. So maybe it's something like that. I don't know, but that way you know it's not going to railroad spikes or something. Yeah.
And also, Jim, I think, well, I'll speak for myself, but I didn't look at it as though we were going to expend, but to have some dollars there. I know we took out both sides of the equation for the trains, but if there were opportunities that did come up, just to have some money there, I certainly, given where we're at, I don't.
Yeah,
think that was the
we
plan.
talked about maybe doing a special event as a fundraiser. We would need some marketing funds for that.
Yeah, absolutely. But I guess, let me ask this question. I can only speak to how we do it at the CTA, but how easy would it be if we maybe we have the marketing fees, but then we had a line that was sponsorships? I guess that's probably its own GL, I guess, or I'm not sure, I know we do it as a separate GL when we do sponsorships of events. So maybe we could just make that change, pull some of those 75,000 out and put it in a separate line. So, idea. Jim, are you okay? Are you, just to clarify, you're comfortable with the amount, but we want to pull out what we maybe hypothetically think we want to do from a sponsorship, or would you like to see the amount lower, or?
So I'm not used to quite seeing a budget in this format.
Okay.
Budgets that I look at kind of have, especially from a enterprise fund, you've got a beginning balance, how much revenue you think you're going to get in, what you really think you're going to spend, and then what you think you're going to end up with at the end of the year as you're kind of balanced forward into the following year. And so you're kind of missing the balance forward piece for me, and you know, hardly ever do we balance in an enterprise fund 100% of what we think we're going to bring in. And so for me, you know, given the fact that this is not that this budget excludes the train operations, I would not have expected to see a professional services line item of $75,000 for marketing. I would have expected it to be significantly lower than that, exclusive of the train operation. And then once we get to a point where we're going to augment the budget, if the trains run, then obviously part of that augmentation would include additional marketing costs for that as you're getting back into the operations.
So maybe we look at what we know is going to happen, rail bikes, leaving money in for some special events, website costs, baseline public relations, at least for rail bikes, what we have going on right now. And then you'd like to see us augment once we figure out the train operations, put the expenditure, those dollars back in.
Yeah, and part of it for me is that you should always be looking for setting aside some of this money for your longer term projects. So if we have some capital projects that we can do, things at the depot, or things that we can do to extend the track, or that we're setting aside some of the money that we have for that piece too. So that's kind of another thing for me. Given that the trains aren't going to run, part of me would set aside some of that money to do these long-term projects that's going to make it, once the train is running, a better product.
So for the purpose of this,
Excuse me, can I?
yes, Jennifer, I was gonna lean on you, please.
It's really important to note that this is the tentative budget, and there is time to make those adjustments should things change in the world and you decide to run trains and move those revenues in and allot for the expenses. That can all be done between the tentative and the final. I think the balance pages that you're looking for are in the Nevada taxation packet that you were given to sign. I'm not sure if you guys have all of that. I can definitely make the changes that you're talking about for the marketing costs and those things, but you do have a month or so to nail all of that down.
Yeah, Jim, that envelope may answer a few questions for you there. As Jennifer's, as she said, is submitting it on probably a form you're used to seeing.
And can you remind me of what the schedule is like for the local governments to submit to the Department of Taxation, please? I am not used to submitting things to the Department of Taxation either.
Yeah, Jennifer.
I'm sure. So this tentative budget is due to taxation by April 15th. So this is your last meeting before that. You will have until June 1st is when your final budget needs to be submitted to taxation. So that gives you 2 more meetings to nail some of these expenses down and figure out which direction the board wants to take running the trains.
Given that comment, I think I'm okay with this as a tentative budget because we will have opportunities to amend it before it is submitted as a final.
Yeah, and Jennifer, this is Dave. We still will do a budget hearing in the last 11 days, right, of May, where we make the final. Yeah, so Jim, we'll have an April meeting. We also have to do a budget hearing as well, which is a separate situation in those last 11 days of May. So there's a couple of more opportunities here for sure. to,
Right, and that
Correct.
last meeting in May is when you have to finalize and everything is approved. So
yeah.
I agree, we definitely have some work to do, but you guys are in such flux right now. Having the tentative budget for this meeting more nailed down was a difficult task at best.
Yeah, this is Clay. I think I understand and probably feel similar to Jim in that philosophically, it seems like a bit of a disconnect on this one line item from the way we've dealt with some of the other things in the tentative budget. But I'm also okay with the time frame that we have to square that up. I don't think it's a, it's a big red flag. It's just acknowledging that maybe it's a different approach than we took with some of the other line items, and as such, it kind of a little tough to square it all up in your mind when you look at it that way.
The important thing is you can approve the tentative budget with the suggested changes. The difficulty in changing anything of the total financial picture is going to change that front page, which is going to mean we are going to have to track all of you guys down to get that front page signed. It's a very little thing, but in my world, it's not a little thing. So
to clarify,
I don't mind changing anything out, but you need to make yourselves available should that front page change.
So Jennifer, just to clarify, is that if we were to change amounts versus structuring where the line items go, if we kept the amounts the same, would we still need to redo that front page?
No, that front page just gives our total expenses. So if you wanted to change marketing at $75,000 to marketing and then to $25,000 in sponsorships, $50,000, I can make those changes without changing that cover sheet.
Got it.
Jim, do you have a preference then? For today, at least.
Okay, there. I think I'm okay. Like I said, I think I'm okay because it's a tentative budget, approving it as it's written without the changes. But if we're going to come back as a final budget and we're still going to have the exclusion of the trains, then I'm not okay with this level of marketing expense.
I think that's fair, Jim. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Can I also suggest that besides your board meetings, that perhaps you create a committee or a group that we can meet with a couple of times before your meetings and get some of these things nailed down so it's not so do or die during your board meetings?
That's an excellent idea. You like a couple of commissioners that could work with you in advance?
Yes.
Yeah, and then also probably as we're closing the fiscal year or approaching the end and getting set up, that's not a bad idea at all. A great idea.
Because the way it worked before, Elaine would create the entire budget. She knew what was going on, and I would just transfer it all into our Tyler system and then create this taxation document. We don't have that luxury this time.
Yeah, budget. Yeah, I think that's exactly. Yeah, no,
So a
perfect.
budget committee.
Like a little small budget committee, just a couple of commissioners. Yeah,
Yeah, so we need to put that into the minutes.
you will agendize that for consideration next month. And somehow I saw Jim volunteer, and
The same thing.
he couldn't push his button fast enough.
Come June, might be a great spot for a new treasurer down there.
Oh my
too, I think.
gosh,
I mean,
Jim!
might be-
Wow, thank you,
be
Jim.
great.
Wow.
Yeah, what an
Jenny, you
idea.
read his mind.
Yeah, but I do like the transparency of having some folks from outside of Virginia City, Story County on that committee, because you guys can see the backside and you'll understand some of the struggles that Jennifer's talking about. The systems, trying to convert one to another is never easy.
Excellent. Go ahead, Stephanie. Yeah, please.
I just had a question on the line item for capital outlay, the building and track future improvements. Do we have specific projects that are defined already, or is that just in the event something comes up in the next year?
I think that's just a general, honestly, a general number that we kind of been putting in there. Stuff comes up we didn't, we didn't plan on that, but yet could be considered a capital outlay. There's a couple items on, whether it would fall under track maintenance or capital outlay that's involving the track, kind of like the Overman pit. There's some stuff there that could be, that needs to be addressed. I know that'll probably come up later, but I think it was more generic.
And Denny, the derailleur piece too, separating right down.
Exactly,
just
yeah, we're
all
gonna
these
talk
getting-
about some
I wanted to
safety
make-
issues.
Yep, sure that we.
Rail bikes, yep, and that would be a capital asset for sure.
Those are, even doing parts, I guess, are like $10,000 a
That's-
piece for those.
That's, I forgot about that out of our conversation. That's where I bumped that up, was a safety thing.
Yes,
Yeah.
go ahead.
And
Elaine,
there
sorry.
could be a few more items on the 18 as well before it's out.
Agreed. We lost everything, I
Did
think.
the laptop go to sleep?
Oh,
Oh, sorry.
we went to sleep.
Okay.
Let me wake it up. There we go.
Okay, perfect. So if there's no additional discussion, happy to entertain a motion on agenda item number 11 for both parts, the 21 financial reports and then, of course, our tentative budget for 22. And thank you to all of you who worked on this. Appreciate it. A lot of uncertainty, a lot of unknowns as we're looking forward, so it does make budgeting very difficult, to say the least.
This is Jim Wells. I'll make a motion that we accept the 2021 financial report through February 28th, 2021, and approve the proposed tentative budget for fiscal year 2021, 2022.
Thank you, Jim, for that motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Clay. Any further discussion?
Just make sure that everybody signs that for us today, please.
Yeah.
Otherwise, Jennifer will come find you.
Yes, we will do that, Jennifer.
Or I'll send Denny.
Oh, no. Wonderful. All right, with that.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer, for your help on this. I really appreciate it. With that, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everyone. All right, moving on to agenda item 12 for possible action. Discussion and possible action regarding reviewing all current contracts and month-to-month service agreements with the V&T Railway. So this is a nice segue from the conversation we just had about the budget. So Elaine, do you want to start? You want me to? If you want to.
I'm sorry, tell me where we are again. I had to flip the.
We're just, so
paper.
we're on, we're not yet on Freedom Rail
The
specifically,
contract?
just general. Yeah, so maybe I could just start if, or do you want to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, go ahead,
Thank you.
thanks.
So as you all know, with COVID and we kind of put a stop to all the contracts. We started going month to month. That has put us behind. We are due to renew or to look at going out to RFP on several of our contracts. So the discussion today would be which to address first, and do we continue some of these month to month just so that service doesn't get interrupted? We have Kendor on as needed hourly. We have the same going on with Gabe Williman. And then Argentum was doing basically everything for us at no charge. I've asked them to give us a charge because we are having to use them for certain things. You're getting ready to do an RFP for the new administrator. I think, you've also got to be looking at we just finished with the rail bikes.
Yes.
You need to prioritize and then determine what needs to be addressed first, and then also which of the commissioners, if you want to divvy this up.
And that's
it's a
really
lot of
what, yeah, Elaine, if I can just jump in, that's really what I'd like to throw some ideas out at everyone and sort of divide and conquer, with Elaine rolling out the door next week. And then we'll have the RFP out there for the admin operations coordinator, right, in the meantime. But if the commission doesn't mind, we break things up and maybe groups of two, hypothetically, maybe Danny and I could work on the contract with Tom and V&T Railroad. Suggestion might be Stephanie and Clay to work on the RFP for the maintenance, moving forward. And then maybe Jim, just not putting you on the spot, but Jim helping with our professional services related agreements that don't require, a formal RFP, right, under the rules of engagement for contracting purposes. So just thinking out loud, a way we might be able to kind of divide and conquer. So I realize we'll have to stage things. We can't do everything at once, right? And so obviously tomorrow, the admin operations coordinator RFP will release, so that one will be underway. But yeah, I definitely like to get everyone's feedback about that approach. And I know everybody's busy, right? So I'm certainly not trying to push anything on the rest of you, but just a thought. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Thank you. I'm glad to volunteer to get started on an RFP for the maintenance and work with Clay on it. I can get something drafted for a first look, Clay, for you to take a look at. As far as timing, are we looking for that to come back to the next meeting for approval, and then
If you two think you might be able to do that, I don't want to put that kind of pressure on anyone. Jim might have something he wants to recommend or suggest.
Yeah,
so.
I'm gonna chime in here a little bit. Because I'm not horribly comfortable with a lot of month-to-month arrangement. I think for me, I would rather have a contract in place that has not gone through the RFP process, that at least outlines what we are doing and what we're paying for while we do an RFP for those services. And so I would be more comfortable if we had contracts in place using the expired terms and conditions with an extension, than having no contract at all. And so, and then I think you can put them on a cycle where you're doing them. Which ones do you want to do first? Which ones, then let the board prioritize. Okay, this ones that we're going to do in 2021. These ones we're going to do in 2022. These ones we'll do in 2023, and then we'll have whatever the cycle is, 3 to 5 year, 3 to 4 year. We use a lot of 4-year terms. Statute pretty much. Statute's not really clear as to whether or not you have to bid on a regular basis. They tell you have to bid, but they don't tell you the length of the term of the contract that you can have. So some contracts that have a bigger impact can have a longer term. But I think that we need to put these kind of on a cycle as opposed to trying to get all of this stuff done in a really short period of time.
Yeah, Jim, I think that makes sense, and we're not all overwhelmed. So does anybody have a thought on prioritizing?
Yeah, I do. We're not, obviously, we don't have to run trains next week or maybe not next month, but I think by the summer, we need to have some stuff pretty strong in place, and things take time to get up and get moving. If I had to prioritize, as a number one, is our agreement with Tom Gray. It needs to be updated. Obviously, that could entail a whole bunch of things. I like the idea, being it's a new RFP, if you will, keeping the maintenance separate for now. But I do think that those two, the maintenance and Tom Gray, are priority before we can run. And we do also know there are some projects, that's like you had mentioned about keeping some stuff going right now. I don't want to wait for an RFP process to do some maintenance on the track. It needs to happen. So that would be my two biggest concerns.
Yeah, I totally agree about the maintenance. So Jim, and Mike, how would that work? So for instance, if Gabe's under contract, right? No, well, he's month to month. Okay, so we're taking that month to month agreement and just updating that while the RFP is out there for a month or 2 or 3 or however long it takes us to get through that process. Then would that be kind of how that would work? Mike or Jim, if you want to weigh in on that.
So I guess my first question would be, was there ever a contract that was in place that expired and that is now being considered a month to month? If so, I would take that contract that has expired and put new dates on it. And then have that contract run while we are doing an RFP. It's to me, it's once a contract expires, the all of the provisions of that contract are gone. There's really no way to say that you have a month-to-month ongoing relationship once a contract's expired. So I'm more comfortable having a contract in place that lists whatever it is that was in the existing, the contract that is terminated, with dates that go from today or, last week or whenever to a specific time. And in the meantime, we will go out and do an RFP for those services.
And so it would almost coincide with the approval of a contract. So once we go through that RFP process, that new contract, taking the old terms and conditions, it terminates basically with the.
So the way I would do it is that we're going to do, let's just say the maintenance is going to be that contract is going to be the first one on our priority list.
Mm-hmm.
So we put in a new contract that is effective today through December 31st.
Into the running
In
season.
the meantime, we do an RFP that will be effective for a new contract on January 1st of next year.
Gotcha.
And so he will provide those services, or
the
that
meantime.
contractor will provide those services
Okay.
at a specified dollar amount through December, and then we'll bid or not bid on the RFP. But
Sure.
that way we have a contract in place that outlines everybody's responsibilities and requirements, and then at the same time gives us enough time to do an RFP without having this kind of non-contract.
Yeah. Is everyone comfortable with that approach?
The only thing that I picked up on that was December is the middle of a fiscal year. And yeah, maybe just a date. Okay, if you're referring to a date, okay, that's great. I'm fine with it, yeah. I think July 1st is a good target date.
Yeah, so we could do something something with Gabe through June 30, because we'd be having the RFP out there, and then that RFP results in a contract that's effective July 1st, hypothetically. Okay. Mike, are you okay with that suggestion?
No, I got it. Yeah, I'm all right with that.
Okay. Now, for Tom's contract, though, Jim, Tom's contract is still in effect, right? So that goes through December 31st, 2022. Yeah. End of the season, yeah. So that one, I think we can work on an amendment,
We can.
just since it's an active contract. Yeah,
I believe there's provisions within that contract to amend it.
Yeah.
That Mike's worked out and Tom in the years past. We can adjust that one.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mike, yeah.
The discussions that we've had with Tom were about a year, 14 months ago. And at that time, Tom and his attorney met with us, and at that time, they wanted to combine the lease of the 18 with the operating agreement, which I think is a pretty good idea. But we need to reactivate those conversations. They sort of went into quarantine with the COVID, so we got to get them activated. And I will take the initiative and set it up with Ryan Russell.
Thank you. Tom, did you want to add anything? Okay, no, perfect. I like that approach. Great. Okay.
So if I may, this is Clay. So our other professional service providers, do we have any other contracts that are still in effect, or are we month to month at this point with?
No, I don't want to speak for Elaine, but technically none of the professional services, they're that weird month to month, but the contract's lapsed, I think, basically. Technically,
Gotcha.
There's no signed paperwork or document in place. So, not that I'm suggesting those aren't as important, but I think we could be working on, maybe, Jim, if you're willing to help a little bit on that. Again, if we divide and conquer, maybe idea to have everything ready to roll for July 1st. I know that's not very far away, but it'd be great to have things in place. But I like Jim's suggestion. If we can do contracts with our existing folks between now and June 30th while we work on the new ones, that's great. So.
Yeah, I have less resistance, and I know that's probably because I'm not involved in the accounting side. I have less resistance to matching it up to the fiscal year. If we feel like the way we're best served is to put us in place through this operating season, That to me is less of an impediment, realizing that it's going to make it a bit of a hassle at this point, but I think it gets us a better result long-term, gives us the time to do the RFPs right, and have, and a little more stability as we're doing final budgeting in the next couple of months as well, so.
Yeah, and then also, so we did have the marketing, but with everything kind of up in the air and waiting to see how everything shakes out, that's one that,
It'll be different, right? Because Freedom Rail's doing their own, depending on how conversations go, Tom, with you as well, and, as far as who wants to handle if you want to handle marketing on the excursion trains, that's going to significantly impact I want to say current situation or relationship with Argentum, but with our marketing agency, right? So that one kind of needs to come after the fact, I do believe. And are we missing anything? I feel like we're. Go ahead, Stephanie.
David, I wanted to add to Clay's comment about, going through the operating season. And I agree with his statement, and I'm not usually on the accounting side either, but I would add to that, especially with the unknown about capacity and how the trains are going to run this year because of COVID, that really might be the right way to go is to go through this year's operating season and then go out for RFP to start after this year's operating season.
So to clarify, what Jim suggested with the new contract, using the terms and conditions, we run that through the end of basically the calendar year. And then our RFPs, we could do those, whatever, over the summer, fall, and start those. Okay. Well, that's an idea, I guess. Except for still need to
Tom's.
work on Tom. Right. I think Tom,
Tom's is gonna be
that would be the one that we
Yeah, you've
deal
got
with, 'cause
stuff
it
like
exists.
Polar Express, and so we got to make some decisions pretty quick. Otherwise, would he
Yeah.
do the contract with Polar Express? Would we do it?
Right.
There's stuff in that one. It can get as complicated as you want.
Yeah. So,
Cool.
yeah.
So one of the things I would say is you do not ever want to have a contract expire during an operating season that's your operator. And so you would never want to have your operator expire on June 30th because it's our fiscal year when you're in the middle of the operating season. So you also want to look at your contracts from when are they and and you don't want to have them terminating in the middle of a season. So like the rail bikes, you would want to have the rail bikes through the end of the year too, because you could get through their season and have enough time for somebody to come in and start if you're going to change providers for the next spring. So you're going to have to look at, like your marketing contract can be on a fiscal year basis. Your administrator or general manager or whatever the new title is going to be can be on a fiscal year basis. The other contracts, you really just need to be looking at your operating season, and you do not want to have an issue with them. If the Polar Express runs from was it November to January 15th or something like that, you don't want to have the contract terminate on December 31st, because then what happens? And so you have to look at these from the impact that they'll have on the business continuity as well.
Great.
Yeah, well, and the rail bikes were set, right? We set that with a two-year extension, if you will.
Right. And that one did end, December 30th.
December
or,
31st of
this year.
23.
Yeah. So Jim, I think you're right on the operational side for rail bikes and trains. Those were always December 31st of whatever year, but yeah. So go ahead, Elaine. Yeah.
I would, if it turns out that you are running the trains and, it shakes out to be the same as this year, if you do bring on a marketing company, that cannot end or begin at the beginning of the fiscal year either, because our season begins in May. So that's one of those things where you're going to want to you're going to have a lot of work to do prior to the season starting, which is May. And then, it goes through December 31st.
Any further discussion from a motion perspective? I guess I do like your suggestion, Jim, about what we do in between before we release the RFPs, setting aside Tom, since that's the contract that we actually have a expiration date two calendar years down the road. But happy to entertain a motion as far as just kind of divvying things up, so we have here's how we're going to move forward. So if everyone's comfortable with the idea of getting contracts in place for the time being with those that all we switch to the month-to-month, but we don't actually have the contract, save for Tom. I'm happy, if the commission, Denny and I would love to work on that with Tom. And then still Stephanie and Clay working on the RFP, but now I feel comfortable we don't have to have that to come back, right, in a month, right? We've got some time because we could do these contracts in between, Mike, that Jim is suggesting. So I don't know how to ask for that in a motion because that's a mouthful, but anybody want to take a stab at it?
Clay, you gonna try it?
I'm
Looking at you,
taking
Clay.
some notes so that I can, if you want. I feel bad after Stephanie's elegant motion earlier that was like a sentence and a half and exactly to the point. This is going to be mangled. So hang on. Let's see. So just to make sure I understand kind of what we were thinking to do, and that was Denny and Dave would handle an update of the contract with the operator, right? And then we would take on. So would we want to divide up getting these kind of temporary updates as well? So for example,
Yes.
we'd work on getting an update out for the maintenance side.
Absolutely. That would be great. I like that idea. And Jim
then-
could still handle the other professional services. So you guys would, both parts of the maintenance. I like that. And then if you're willing to potentially look at helping us with the other professional services, engineering and, the legal side of things, that would be super. If that's fair.
Sorry.
Now, to make it clear, are we just going to change the dates on the maintenance to extend it for now? Because I
Yes.
do need to
Yes.
have Gabe get out there and do some
Yes.
work.
That one, yeah. So we'll take the terms and conditions of Gabe's contract that was in place
Okay.
but expired, and then we'll have the new, dollar amount, and then just run it through December 31st for the time being, I guess. I'm sorry, June 30th.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because we'll have an RFP that will be underway in the meantime, and then new contract for July 1st, I think is, I don't know, is that aggressive, or I feel like we could do that, but yeah. Yeah. Because I think it would make sense to have the maintenance on the fiscal year, since we're budgeting the maintenance on a fiscal year basis, and that takes place throughout the course of the year, right? It's not dependent upon one operation running over the other, so, Stephanie, yeah.
Sure. So I guess I have two questions now. The first one I was going to ask is if we take that existing contract and we change the dates on it, does that need to come back to the board for approval at the next meeting? Or are we trying to get that going before? Is that a motion we're going to make today so that we can get it going before?
Are you referring to Tom's contract?
No,
Oh.
Gabe.
Oh, okay.
She's-
Oh, gotcha.
So
Sorry.
that's first question.
Mike, could you answer that?
What was your question, Stephanie?
As part of our discussion, we've talked about taking the existing contract for Gabe for maintenance, and we're gonna change the dates on it. And then that will allow him to move forward to start doing maintenance. So the question that I had is, in order for us to do that, does that contract need to come back here to the commission for approval before we can execute it?
I think so. It's expired, so the previous action was to continue efforts on a month-to-month basis, so I think you'd have to have the contract back in front of you as a notice item on the agenda.
Okay, so if that's the case, then it would be the same thing for the other professional services contracts, because technically they lapsed, so we would need to bring them all back for April's meeting. Yes? Go ahead, Jim.
So is there a list? So I'm looking at lists and I have kind of slightly different information. I'm looking at the folder that Denny gave me that says that the Williman Railroad construction contract is the termination date of 5/31/22. I've got, but I think this one said that it was a different date. And do we have something that is definitive as to what contracts we have and what contracts are expired and what contracts we're actually talking about? Because I know that the I think if we want to do this, I think it's imperative that we have, like, here are the 6 or 7 contracts that we have. Dave and is going to take lead on this one. Jim's going to take the lead on this one. Stephanie, and just go down the list of contracts. And if we don't need to do anything with them today, then we don't need to do anything with them today. But I think that I don't know that I necessarily know where we are from which contracts we're talking about and which ones we're not.
I can answer
Elaine,
that.
yeah, will you?
Yeah, I sent a list out to the, I think it was last board meeting. We, in fact, discussed it at our first workshop. And yeah, you have a different one. But our very first workshop, that was part of the information that we rolled out, just the general information. I had about a whole list of all of our contracts and when they were expiring. So again, so if I could just go back to the RFP for the track maintenance, as Stephanie brought up, if we're not running trains, we're putting out an RFP. That if we're putting it out to bid and we don't have a train running, are we also putting out to bid like the inspections, the maintenance, the whole enchilada? Is that what we're doing? Okay.
I think so, right?
Yes. I think it's all-
Yeah,
it's
that
all going
that
out.
makes
So how-
sense.
Okay.
But now I'm confused though. Wait, so on the document that Jim's looking at, Gabe's contract, I thought, and I apologize, but I thought Gabe's contract was one of the expired ones that went month to month.
No,
Oh.
Tom's does not expire
No,
until 2020.
not Tom, but Gabe.
Gabe is one that we've been writing month to month. And we were in September, I brought the new contract to renew the contract to the board. And that's when we decided not to do Polar. So everybody got put on a month to month because we had no idea
Okay.
how, COVID was going to impact us.
So-
And so that was actually put on hold to month to
Right.
month.
So on just what, just want to ask a question. Do we need to, not to jump back to budget, but do we need to fix the submission, the tentative budget submission, if that's incorrect on what Jim's looking at, if that contract doesn't actually exist?
Jennifer needs us to update the contracts. That's what
Okay.
she was asking for, an updated contracts, and that's the one sheet we haven't, we
hadn't-
didn't
yeah,
know
we
what to
were
put
here.
down on there.
Okay, okay.
So that
okay.
has to be done before this goes in.
Okay,
Okay, so again, we've been operating month to month. If we can do, the month to month until next month, and then bring the contracts forward, so you can extend whichever ones you believe need to be extended, so that they can go out to RFP. But again, I'm just asking because we have some work on the tracks before the rail bikes get started. And I need to have, to inform Gabe what he needs to do
okay.
before April 17th. And all of that was brought up during the inspection presentation that the gentleman came and did for us. What's his name? Kent?
Kent,
Hadford.
that was, yeah.
And I have 2 guys out on the tracks right now, doing ditches down the road, because I thought 2 meetings ago, they said, go ahead, do it before.
Right.
So today, I have 2 guys out on the track.
So I think it's fair because we have an agenda that allows us, discussion and possible action regarding reviewing all contracts and month-to-month service agreements. We can provide direction to Jim, could work with Mike and Gabe to do that intermediate new contract while we go out to look at doing a bid.
Yeah, well,
Not too worried.
I think my thought is that the motion would be to direct the different board members to pursue these different areas. We don't need to get super specific, but to bring them back next month. And then next month's agenda will include if it's an update to a current contract, if it's whatever is needed, basically, that's what the motion is. It's not getting into what each of us should do. Each of us know what we're supposed to do and bring it back to kind of get us up to speed for whether it's a modification of a current contract in your case, or whether it's taking something that's month to month and codifying it as, extending it out or whatever it is. I think the motion can be sufficiently general at this point, and council can tell me if that's not okay, but to just instruct us to go out, examine, and propose updates to bring the contracts into compliance or something like that.
Kenny, do you want to add something there?
Yeah, I wanted to kind of touch on Stephanie's comment about the maintenance. In my opinion, this is much like an opportunity to restructure some things that works beneficial for everyone, that's maybe a little more fluid, a little more efficient. So in my mind, the maintenance piece was, or maybe it was your question too, Elaine, as far as the pieces of maintenance, is to look at an RFP that it maybe puts one person in charge that's basically managing the maintenance for us. That's kind of the direct, and has all these other little elements maybe within it. That was my thought on maintenance.
So Denny, what do you mean by one person managing?
Right now, there's a lot of elements out there. I think we have 3 or 4 different people that are in their own, but it's not necessarily fluid. Maybe there's others that are out there that can talk to this, but have basically one person that one. I don't know how I'm not explaining that anymore. It's any differently. It's one person that's oversees the maintenance, that ensures that the tracks are safe, that we're compliant, that we have the right seal or stamp, that the stuff that the work's getting done, without, and maybe a person that is qualified to do that. We're not qualified to do that.
No, that has been Gabe, and Ken was involved when we were actually doing bigger projects, when we had the funds. So are you saying there's crossover?
It's not quite that cut and dry, is it? I mean, for example, I remember a discussion we had last meeting about how a lot of the compliance stuff, you were actually kind of handling administration side of that, or filing or what
reports.
have you, reports. Gabe was doing actual work. Tom's involved sometimes when he has equipment that's needed or what have you, and I think just clarifying all of that and really making sure.
Yeah, it has to be a VNT representative, a commission representative that's signing those reports, so.
If they're under contract to represent us, I think that can be worked out.
Hello, this is Gabe Wilman. In the time past, Ken Dorr was our roadmaster. He was the go-between between me and you, so you didn't have to listen to my smart-ass comments every time you called me up. He'd say professionally, like, okay, well, this is what's going on, this is what we need to do. He was the one person. And I don't know if that's something he wants to do now, but if you want one person, you used to have one person, and it was easy for me because I just said, hey, Ken, we need to do this, and I didn't have to talk to 5 people. I only had to talk to one, but I don't know if if that's something that you wanted to do.
And my role was basically to maintain the budget.
Yeah.
So, and to process the POs, the purchase orders, and make sure that we had the money to do the projects. And that's where my permission lay.
Go ahead, Ken.
Just follow up on Gabe's. My contract was modified in February of last year to include basically I would only be doing on-call work. Prior to that, what I was responsible for was the right-of-way and all the maintenance way on the project, which included day-to-day supervision of Gabe's work, reviewing of track inspection reports and signal inspection reports, making sure those were filed away properly in one location for potential review by the FRA. I was also in charge of the annual bridge and structure inspections, which Elaine had Kent do that this last year separately. I was in charge of that and also maintaining those records. One of the aspects of the bridge and structure inspections, thanks to Congress in 2010, they require that all railroads, including ourselves, do a bridge inspection. And we also had to do a management plan. In that management plan is a requirement, and this is right in the federal requirements, that who is responsible for what. And that identified everybody. Basically, I was in charge for anything that happened on that track. It was my butt if it went haywire. So I was responsible for the day-to-day maintenance, implementing the budget that was available, reviewing the work that Gabe had to do. And there's always more things to do than you have budget for, but we tried to do the best. You don't have anybody that's taking that responsibility right now. So you guys need to decide what you want to do. Right now, you got a big vacuum, and you're in arrears with FRA requirements.
So, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the issue, and I think that the more immediate concern is the one that's been expressed about making sure that we have contracts with some stability, and then we can roll into the RFP over a course of months and have these conversations about how we want to. And I'm happy with Stephanie to take that on as the continuing responsibility, with the immediate for next month being make sure that we're no longer on month to month. We got some maintenance responsibilities that are locked in for the season, if you will, and then we can try to fix this issue over the course of the rest of the year.
No, I think that makes sense. But just want to clarify what Ken just brought up. Is that going to be covered or not with Gabe's contract?
Well,
It sounds like that's a separate.
yeah, I mean, right now, all we're trying to do, we're not changing anything. We're trying to just get a lock-in on what Gabe's doing on the tracks
Yeah.
through the end of this season, and then we'll turn our attention to
Okay.
all of this.
But what about, just if I can ask a question, Ken, the bridge inspection, is that due this summer?
We just did it.
Oh, okay, so we're okay with it. I just want to make sure we don't
No,
have
Elaine
something.
took care of that in a couple months ago. So
Oh,
you're
okay.
good for 540 days.
Okay, perfect, okay. I just want to make sure we weren't missing something to get us through June 30th that we're not thinking about. Okay, thank you, Ken, thanks. Go ahead, Stephanie. Yes.
So all of those items that Ken just described, the one copy of his professional services that we have doesn't include that. I don't believe it was, because this was just I guess what we would call the month to month. So is that previous contract somewhere that we can get a copy of it so we can see what those different services are?
Yeah, it should be in the package that I sent to everyone. Yeah, it's just a page. We added a page to his existing contract. So I'll make sure everyone receives whatever contract you're assigned today and you're working on. I'll send those specifically to each of you individually. And then also to let you know, Stan Jones, Mike Santos and I met in January or early February of 2020, and we were working on some of the markup. But, if you'd like to see that markup, I'll add that in to the package. I'll send you the original plus the markup, because we were going to go through this exercise last year. And, but yeah, so whatever you guys decide today, I'll send you the information that you need. And including a list of what's out there and what expired and when,
That would be helpful. Yeah.
okay?
Clay, you want to take a crack at the motion?
I can. I just want to
Okay.
make sure that I have everything, everything that we need to include in this. So what I have is a review of the contract, review and potential update of the contract with the train operator, and that'll be Denny and Dave. Stephanie and I will take on track maintenance with Gabe. And then Jim is going to take a look at our marketing and PR with the Argentum engineering with Ken Dorr, and
No, leave marketing out for right now.
what's that?
Leave marketing out for
No
right now.
updates on legal?
No updates on marketing, yeah, not for now, just
Or
because
on
we still have to
marketing.
work everything out with Tom too, right?
So-
Denny and I have to do step one first. Mhm.
Mr. Rose, are we on month to month with you as well?
I'm sorry?
Are we on a month to month situation with you as well? Is that something that needs to be rectified?
I believe so.
No, my contract is a little unusual, mainly because it was at Marv's insistence. It's that old. But it automatically renews unless I give you 30 days notice or you give me 30 days notice. It just
Keeps going.
continually rolls over. And it hasn't been modified in 10, 12, I don't know what the date on it is even.
Well, if we're paying 2009 prices, I'm not going to mess with it. So.
No, I was just gonna say, if we're $25 an hour for legal services, that's great. Thank you, Mike.
Jim, are you comfortable with that? Is that solid enough to make you feel comfortable going forward on the legal side, at least for right now? Okay, perfect. Okay, so then
I don't have a
really,
copy.
Jim's just going to look at engineering
I'm
for
now
right
going to
now. Is
ask Mike
that
for a copy.
What?
Can you send me
That's-
a copy of your contract? I don't
You're correct.
have a copy. It's
Oh, I'm
that
sure you
old.
must.
No.
I'll be happy to email it to everybody. It's been scanned in for over a decade. Happy to send it to all of you, or I'll send it to you and you can distribute it to them.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Perfect. All right. I'll take a crack at it. So this is Clay, and I'd like to make a motion that we instruct the various members of this commission to review and possibly bring back for updates the various contracts that we have, specifically that Denny and Dave will work on a review and update of the contract with our train operator, Tom Gray and the V&T Railroad, that Stephanie and I will review and potentially bring an update for track maintenance with Gabe, as well as working on an RFP in the long term for that, and that Jim will review and potentially bring back an update for engineering with Kendor.
We have a very short, concise motion from Clay. Do we have a second?
I will second that. This is Denny.
Thank you, Denny. Any further discussion by the commission? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item 13 for possible action. Discussion and possible action regarding amendment number 1 of Freedom Rail LLC's Independent Rail Bike Rides Services Agreement with the V&T Railway Commission effective April 1st, 2021. Elaine, do you want to get us started on that?
You can see it up on your screen. This basically is Amendment 1, and it includes all of the items that were discussed at the last meeting. I understand that there could be more.
There'll be some additional adjustments just from the safety perspective, yes.
Okay, and
about
I'll be
rail
happy
bikes.
to
Yep.
take those and add them after the meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also with the gift certificates, right? We need to incorporate some language in. So Rail Bikes is going to honor, as we were kind of talking about at our last meeting, about them honoring any gift certificates that were previously issued. And that people
Gift
can-
certificate
I mean,
and
gift
vouchers.
certificates, sorry. Yeah,
Yes,
vouchers,
both.
yeah. Yeah, both of those. And then, yes, there's a safety piece which we're working on. We just don't have the exact language in place for that. So if the commission is comfortable allowing us to work out those last few details, and I do think we can get those done maybe tomorrow or early next week, then we can have this all captured in one amendment, not multiple amendments, so we can get going on the rail bike front. So any questions? So what you see, Jim, just for you, Jim, what you're seeing in front of you is more or less what we discussed last month. Is just in an amendment format to the existing contract, but there are a few adjustments, some clerical changes that we do need to make based on the conversation that we had at the beginning of March at our prior meeting. Any questions or?
Yeah, this is Denny. Knowing that we do not have a train operating in the next month, I'm comfortable with go ahead and looking to approve this so that they can start operation next month. But I would be very concerned and would be adamantly opposed to them running until we get a safety piece put in place that outlines the train and the bike operating on the same day.
Agreed, and that's what these other changes and additional language will go into the amendment. But again, I think we can get that done next week, so it doesn't impact their ability to start on the 15th or 17th or whenever. Yeah, 17th. Yeah. No, I agree. And I'm sorry that we didn't get all this resolved for today's meeting. But we can get those changes in place next week and have an agreement. And I think the thing is we can always amend, right? So if something comes up from our conversations with Tom and team, we can certainly do another amendment, right, at a subsequent meeting down the road, so.
Yes, and I was able to speak with Vinny and Todd at Freedom Rail prior to this meeting, and they're aware of the additions, and they're looking forward to speaking with you all and Tom, and they will be very cooperative, and they understand that there's some additional changes. And then their attorney, of course, will review it.
Sounds great. If I could get a motion then? on this
David,
particular- oh, sorry.
I'd like to address the commission on
Go
this
ahead.
issue.
Go ahead.
At the last meeting, Clay made a motion to approve the amendment that you have in your packet today. And the board voted unanimously in favor of that, subject to clerical corrections to the agreement and adjustments to reflect the intent of the agreement. To that end, last Friday, David, Tom, Ken, and I met to discuss some concerns that Tom has about rail bike safety. And as a result of that, we have drafted some additional language to include, and I can pass out copies of it, but we haven't reached agreement on that. Ken prepared a schematic that's entitled Operational Plan, and I have written language to add to the amendment that would incorporate that plan. But I will tell you, the salient points of it are that rail bikes will have to observe all 7 of the elements of the operational safety plan, and they will have to acknowledge and agree that the Virginia and Truckee Railroad shall be the sole dispatcher of movements on the track. Because as Tom said last Friday, you don't want a rail bike and a train having a collision. And he's the only one, not he, the V&T Railroad is the only one that has the ability to dispatch operations and issue train occupancy or track occupancy permits. And that should be done prior to any activities on the track. So I'm happy to pass this out. This is only the draft. We've got a little massaging to do on it. But if you want to see what the current status of it is, I'm happy to show it to you. Whatever the commission's pleasure.
You guys want to at least take a look at that? I mean, it's a work in progress, right? Which is why I'm asking for a little bit of latitude, right, to incorporate with some language changes this into the amendment number 1 with Freedom Rail. That way we're set, good to go before the rail bikes start running in 3.5 weeks.
So it seems like a motion in this regard would be kind of a further to what was approved last meeting with some sort of stipulation that there's an agreement with Freedom Rail Bikes to these safety
Absolutely,
stipulations
Clay.
prior to the beginning of operation.
Tom had some very convincing remarks about the need for one person or one entity, in this case, to be in charge of dispatch and to ensure that there's no rail bike on the track when the train is operating.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Well, and I'm thinking we don't necessarily need to make a motion to specifics. I think the motion would
I
just
think
be.
you covered it at the last meeting, Clay. Your motion was right on point and basically said it's approved, subject to some clerical revisions.
And so you're thinking that these fall under this,
And that's the authority under which we met last week to try and iron out these safety concerns that Tom has. And he can address them if you wish. He's certainly able to do that.
no, I 100% agree. There were I think two issues that we were discussing that were not included in the original agreement, or 2 areas of, to be addressed. One was acceptance of gift certificates and vouchers. The other one was safety.
Yes.
And if we feel like the motion from last meeting was broad enough to include those, then I think we're fine. If not, we can mention those specifically and basically say that those have to be agreed to and buttoned up before operations begin. And that to me makes me feel a little more safe to include that. But if it's not necessary, it's not necessary.
I think that's fine, although we have interpreted your motion to allow us to proceed with ironing those out. But if you want to make it specific today, then have at it.
What does the board feel? I mean, Are we good running with what we did last month or beginning of this month, whenever it was?
It was the beginning of the month. Yeah, it feels like so long ago. Yeah, and that was me. So I talked to Mike obviously last week, but we had already put the agenda out. I thought we needed to be specific on the 2 additional pieces, but Mike said, it's okay, the motion covers us. So I'm completely fine with Mike's legal opinion on that. So go ahead, Elaine.
And so I have 6 more days. And so if I could get that language and
Yep.
then.
But this is the draft. I want everybody to understand that. This is what I put together after our meeting last week. Sent it to Tom, his attorney, to Ken,
We've got a couple small things we need to,
and to David too.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a starting point. But yeah, you can have it.
Okay, so what I'm saying is what I'd like to do then is to see somebody on the commission that would run with this contract to make sure that, I'll get it to Freedom Rail. They need their attorney to review it.
sure. Oh,
Then
I
it'll
can work
need
on that with Mike, yeah.
signatures.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So,
Just to have someone to get it back to.
exactly.
Well,
So I can point them.
Yeah, point them to me. Yeah, I mean, if I'm signing it, yeah, it makes sense that I should probably see it. Yeah. That's fine.
Does make sense.
And obviously, yeah, and if there's something that comes back or there's an issue with Freedom Rail's attorneys, of course I will incorporate Mike, right? And
I'm sorry?
if Freedom Rail, their legal folks say, oh, hey, we don't like this, or could you change this word? I will, of course, get with you, Mike. But I think I'm hoping we can roll with what we have, right? So we got a lot of folks on our side that I think
Yeah, because they have an attorney on their side
Yeah.
as well, so, okay.
Yep.
It's your track, David.
Yes.
And you have the ability to put reasonable restrictions, especially for safety reasons, on the use of that track.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, we went back and forth even with the last amendment, so, and polished that up for them.
Yep.
So this shouldn't be a problem.
So I think we're okay. I don't think we need to take another motion. We'll operate off of the motion from the beginning of the month. And we'll get this in place with the adjustments that we talked about prior to operations beginning.
I'm comfortable with it as long as everyone else is.
Is everyone okay with that? Okay, wonderful. All right. 14, for possible action. Discussion and possible action regarding a proposed new agreement with Roy L. Street for the final payment of $431,489.71 due on January 1st, 2021 for the property at the 3581 Draco Way in Carson City. Elaine?
Okay, we've made some grounds. I spoke with, we had a couple of things that Roy Street still needed to follow up with. And one of those was, he had some property taxes that were due March 1st. Stephanie looked into that for me and they were paid. And then also, the $200,000 check, that, I was told that would go to the title company. They instructed me to send it to them. They'll hold on to it so that nothing crosses over before everybody's has approved that, the new contract. Right now, there still is one item hanging out, and it has to do with a legal definition relating to the title search, and they are still working on that. So you should see this at the next board meeting to have it finalized. And I asked for a May 1st, first payment date. So you can start receiving the $5,300 a month. And then, of course, everything will come together at that point, but we're getting closer.
Okay. So you don't need any action from us
No, you
technically
just need to
today?
be informed
Just
that
letting us know?
yeah,
Okay.
it's taken a little longer.
And we'll come back in April and hopefully, okay. Are there any questions or concerns that? Go ahead, Clay.
I know this is taking a little longer than originally planned on this. Is that all being accounted for? In other words, proration or interest accruing or whatever? Or are we kind of in limbo until the new agreement's in place?
Good question. We asked for the January interest payment. We have not asked for any other interest or fee to be paid for February or March. It should have come together much more quickly. But we did have a couple of hiccups. But they're being taken care of now.
Is that of concern about February and obviously March by the time we get this resolved?
Yeah, I mean, not personally, but if we have a fiduciary as far as managing the assets of the commission, you know, a couple of months rent-free doesn't sit well.
Right. Do we need to, I'm trying to think back to our previous motion, it was 200,000 plus 1,700, I think, right, in interest?
And I can use the previous contract to come up
Okay.
with
What that
an interest
should be
payment.
for
Easy
February
enough.
and March? Okay,
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't even need to look at it.
okay.
It'll be about 17, 14, about $3,400. No,
I think it's 1,700.
total for the 2
per
months.
month, yeah.
And then if it looks like it's going to start in June, we'll just add another.
We'll add April and May. So can we give you that direction today that, okay, could that be like a standing, not an expert on, you know, these types of things, but could it be standing based on whenever this gets resolved that we'll be owed the $1,700 a month and,
Yeah, I'd just say a proration to the
Proration.
date that the
Okay.
deal closes.
yeah.
You know,
Mike,
at
do we-
at the rate that was agreed upon previously.
Mike, do we need to take an action on that, Mike, about the interest, the prorated interest until such time as we get the agreement in place?
I don't think we need to take action on it.
Okay.
Title company got the money, that's important.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just waiting for them to finalize the documents. And,
Okay.
I think we'll have to track you down to get a signature, but that's
Sure.
all I think is needed.
Okay. Okay, wonderful.
Well, and that would not necessarily change things going forward, or would they, as far as, because we have a different payment schedule going forward, correct? And that doesn't start until the deal comes into place. All we're asking for is interest payments for the time that's elapsed. Doesn't change the principal still owing, shouldn't change the payments going forward, so.
On the balance owing, yeah.
I mean, I think that's eminently fair. We're not asking for 5,300 a month, we're just asking for the
Yeah.
interest that would have been due otherwise.
Yeah, it's the
I
interest
think
on
it's totally
the
fair.
$431,489.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't had a
Monthly.
beneficial interest or beneficial use of the funds yet, and so to me, I think that's
Guys okay with it?
a fair ask.
Yeah,
It's compounded monthly.
okay. Compound monthly. I agree. Okay, wonderful. All right, let's move on to 15 for discussion only. So we have our monthly non-action item. And this is going to be the final general manager's report for one Elaine Barkdale Spencer. Take it away.
And I have nothing.
Well, we have something, maybe. I don't know how we're going to do this, but maybe I'll come down there. Is that all right? Okay. Okay. So we've got a little something here. I'll read it. It's Elaine Barkdale Spencer, General Manager, V&T Railway Commission, in recognition and appreciation of your outstanding leadership and dedicated service to the commission, March of 18 through March of 2021. And we even have the right logo on there. What do you think of that?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Oh, there you are.
Thank you. This is
So
very
thank
sweet.
you.
Thank you so much.
I know, I only came on, right, in August, right? And then now she's quitting and Stan quit and everybody quit since I came on. So I thought it was them. Now I'm starting to think maybe it was me. I don't know. But anyway, thank you. Thank you. I've enjoyed
Thank
working
you.
with you,
Yeah, and I'm very
Elaine. So
impressed, very, very impressed with this new commission. You guys are going to do great things.
Oh.
Danny's going to do.
Did you want to go first?
Oh, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to, be a part of this operation. And we had a very good time out there. I loved being part of the VNT and working with all of you. I think we made some great improvements. And going forward, I just see things looking better and better all the time. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Good luck.
Well, thank you, Elaine. I've only gotten to work with you for the first 3 months of my term on here, but it's been great to get to know you. You'll be sorely missed, and we appreciate all the information that you've helped us attain in this time. So thank you.
Okay, well, thank you.
These are for you as well.
Thanks.
Want me to set them here so you?
Yeah, and just to let you all know, I now work for NNDA. I'm doing business retention and expansion. So I'll be right downtown in Carson City. And so I'm going back into economic development, which was my background. Okay, thank you. So come see me and we'll have coffee.
Are you buying?
Yes,
That's
you bet.
wonderful. No,
If it's
thank
after
you
hours, I'll
again.
buy you a beer. Do what?
You need to get him a grant now.
Yeah. unfortunately.
Oh,
There you go.
there's that
There you
funding,
go,
new funding
yeah.
source opportunity.
Exactly.
Wow.
Way to go,
Couple
Ken.
100,000 wouldn't hurt the
I don't
commission.
think, I don't think NNDA handles tourism-related stuff, unfortunately.
Yeah, no
Not enough.
grants for that, but,
ahead.
You know, hey, Elaine, I wanted to also say thank you. You and I have been through quite a bit, but you've done a wonderful job. You've taken this to a different level. It's been beneficial for everyone, and you will always be a part of the Comstock. And yep, so just give us a call whenever you want to hop on a train. I'm sure that you could probably get on there pretty easily. So
I'll be the new.
With a
Freeman.
discount, you know.
it'd be a small
discounted
discount.
ticket.
Yeah, we'll get you on there. Yeah. But anyway, thank you. Great job.
Rule. That's all I'm going to say. No tears, right?
That's right.
No, any other further comments? We'll go ahead and move on to the attorney's report. Mike?
You've already heard it. The things I've been working on were the rail bike agreement and the street deed of trust. And really nothing else outside of the normal activities of reviewing agendas and minutes and whatnot.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mike. Item C, upcoming meetings. So our next meeting will be a regularly scheduled meeting on April 29th at 1 PM. And my goal will be to do that meeting in under 4 hours. So there you've all heard it. Keep those motions short and sweet, Clay. All right. D, commissioner comments, announcements, and requests for information. Do any of my peers have anything they want to request, ask for, throw up?
Just that there is a folder somewhere in here that's
That we
needs
have to
some
sign,
signatures
yes.
on it. Do not
Yes.
leave until you
Yeah.
sign, please.
Yes. No,
Yes.
thank you, Denny, for the reminder.
All I got.
Great. Moving on to agenda item 16, public comment. The public is invited to comment at this time on any matter that is not specifically included on the agenda as an action item. No action may be taken on a matter raised under this item of the agenda. Gentlemen, do we have any public comment?
We have no callers at this time.
Thank you very much.
Chairman, before you finish things up, I just had a quick question.
Yeah.
Do one of us need to volunteer to prepare some minutes from this meeting for our next meeting?
No. So I'm going to have some help
Okay.
on my end to work on that, and possibly maybe somebody from the city, but we will work on the minutes, and my team will help. I don't want to volunteer, but with Stephanie as far as the agenda for the
Perfect.
April 29th meeting. Yeah, so we'll work on that. Yep. For possible action, number 17.
David?
Yes.
Just a
Sorry.
comment. Elaine has been sending me the draft minutes for proofreading, so if you do that, I'll be happy to.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll make sure it either comes from Chris, well, it'll come from Chris, probably on my staff, but yes, I'll make sure that we do that. All right, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
So moved. We're adjourned.